Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Facts on the Ground. My name is Misty Winston, and I am joined as always by my co-host, Jesse Zerwell. Today, we have a very special guest. He is an independent candidate in District 39 of California. He's one of my favorite shit stirrers on Twitter. He's an absolute must follow, hilarious, unless he has you blocked, because he likes to block people too, I've heard. Like people keep tweeting at me recently telling me, well, he's got me blocked. And I'm like, whatever, shut the fuck up. So anyways, we are very pleased to welcome Steve Cox to the show. Steve, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. I'm happy I'm happy to be on here. And I just want to say for the record on the blocking people, I've developed over the last few months of being in quarantine and just getting so sick and tired of everybody saying the same shit over and over and over again that like when people like there's just people that I'm like, yeah, you're out of here. I don't want to see your stuff ever. You know,
yeah, I feel your pain.
There's other people that got caught in blockchains because the times I got doxxed by people on the right and shit like that. I had to, I went through and blocked all their followers. And so if any of those people followed one of the accounts that I chain blocked, that's the other way that I catch some people, because some people follow shitty accounts just to see what's going on there. It's not that they agree with it or whatever, but anyway,
yeah, I personally
so if you see somebody
people.
like, feel free to call it out, and then I'll if you want to, and I'll try to unblock them if they want to be unblocked, because not all of them were intentional.
I hate doing that, and I hate when people ask me to do that. Like, hey, will you get at so and so and tell them to unblock me? No, like I don't want to get in the middle of your Twitter shit. Like I don't care enough to, you know what I mean? Like I have enough of my own shit.
Yeah, no, I'm not asking you to do that.
No,
I'm just
I get
saying
it.
If you wanted to, like, you totally could. Because like I do feel a little bit bad about those people, but at the same time, like I've gotten blocked by so many on the left before. Before I even got a chance to block them over stupid virtue signaling bullshit, where they're like, somebody accusing me of being racist, in some ridiculous scenario, or somebody, calling me a transphobe or whatever number of things that have happened from people on the left. A lot of those people just decided like, he's a racist and I'm going to block him. I'm like, yeah, because I'm a white guy. So like the racism thing is an easy thing. It's an easy accusation to make, but
I don't consider people who make accusations like that as part of the left though.
No,
I feel like
they're kind of liberal.
They're
best.
like centrist commissars. And
I think so too. That's why I kind of don't mind losing them.
Yeah, it's really more annoying than anything else because, I'm not saying that I have the highest amount of confidence in myself in the world, but I know who I am and what I stand for.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly where I'm at.
When these people say things that are just absurd, it's like, you can tell exactly where they're coming from and what they're trying to.
And I'm convinced that some of these people are 100% on somebody's payroll, or they're useful idiots for somebody on somebody's payroll, because they all run in the same crew, like the same clique. They all use the exact same language. And what's interesting,
woke
like
culture shit.
Yes. Well, and it's And like recently, and it kind of like really dawned on me recently when it happened to me personally, but like all of a sudden everybody came out of the woodwork to call me a cultist in regards to Assange. And they're like, oh, you're an Assange cultist or whatever. And I'm like, that's like, I've heard that before. And then I was listening to Jimmy Dore. He had Max Blumenthal on, and I love Max.
Yeah.
And so I was listening to Jimmy Dore, and he brings up this tweet from Neera fucking Tandon from a few years ago, where she says, like, there are some really bad cultists on this site, but the worst are the Assange cultists. And I'm like, oh, I see where you got your messaging from. Like, okay, this makes sense now. And it's
Center for American Progress.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
These people are ridiculous. And I'm thoroughly convinced that most of them are there to attempt to shut the real left up, like to get people either discredit us or like scare us off, so that we don't speak out anymore. I'm not saying all of them. But there are a few that I'm very suspect of.
But I think a lot of them, they just get caught up in this. It's, for lack of a better term, because I think the right came up with the term, but they're just virtue signaling. They just get on and they just want to be the most virtuous person. So it's always about like one-upping who the amount of offense you can show for any given thing. Like, because there's almost anything a person says of substance at any given time, anywhere, can be taken, if somebody decides they want to, can be taken and turned into something that you could argue with, that you could be offended by. It's like, man, would this guy just drive? Well, you don't know his situation. Like, how do you know, like, you're in your car and having road rage? Or they're just like, well, you don't know. Like, it could be, and they can get offended at you being angry at somebody who's driving for like shit, Like, it's just a weird thing that I think that can be done if people decide to. The problem is that people, that's what they're deciding to do. They're deciding to read things and hear things in a way that allows them to be the most offended by whatever it was.
Yeah,
that is, I think, the issue.
The left, I truly believe, would rather like sit smugly in their safe space and like be able to feel morally superior to somebody than they would to actually win something. Like they don't want to win. Like they're not willing to do anything to actually win something. They just want to talk about it a lot and sit like in their little clique.
Because it's the virtue signaling thing. Like, if I'm for Medicare for all, therefore I am superior to you guys. Never mind the fact that we couldn't even get them to get a vote for it. From all their fucking heroes in Congress, couldn't even force a vote on the goddamn thing. Well, but as long as they get to support it publicly, then they have this virtue of being better, in a better position to, lead the online bullshit, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. And all of a sudden it's an attack on Jimmy Dore. Like, that's all it is. It's just Jimmy Dore.
But I think another example of that virtue signaling is Ro Khanna and what he's said about Yemen and the mealy-mouthed, paperwork he's put forth for change. He hasn't done anything. He just keeps talking. Nothing gets done. If you really care about the genocide that's happening in Yemen,
then how many people are dying every fucking day. Every day. And if you want to stop that, you might want to get on it. Like, you might want to actually start doing some shit.
Stop tweeting about it.
I would. I'd imagine you'd be up at the podium in the Capitol screaming, to your fellow congressmen, like, there's a genocide.
Like, perfect example is like, they refused to force the vote on Medicare for all, right? Which best case scenario, because it wouldn't have passed, but best case scenario, you would have seen at least the supposed leftists or progressives or Democrats that didn't support it, so who you need to get rid of, right? In Congress. So that's the best thing, which is what AOC did. She got rid of a centrist, right? So like, she knows that that's the strategy. Like, she's not that dumb. And then, I mean, she's not dumb at all, but but I'm just saying, like, she knows the strategy. But you have this, like, I had people, I'm sitting here going, what are we doing with this fucking impeachment? There's no way they're going to get 67 votes in the Senate. It's just not going to happen. 44 Republicans just voted that it was unconstitutional just to have the impeachment trial. So if 44 of them have already decided that the whole thing is unconstitutional, there's no way you're going to get, another 11 of those to vote for impeaching Trump, because they need a 2/3 vote. It's 67 votes. Right. So I'm pointing this out, and the lady's like, some lady online is like, you just need to be patient, because they're, they can walk and chew gum at the same time. I'm like, no, they can't. No, they can't. Have you seen our Congress? They can't walk and, like, are you serious?
They're not even attempting to. That's the problem. They're not even attempting to chew gum and walk at the same time. I guess kind of they are, because they're trying to pretend like they're doing something, while not really doing anything. It's like they're trying to put on this show.
Right, but the thing is, this is what I point out. I say, but here's the thing. Just look at that Yale study on Medicare for all that showed that 68,000 Americans die every single year before the pandemic, but every single year, 68,000 Americans die because they can't afford health insurance in our country. And that means even if they have insurance, that they can't afford to use it. Like, you have a pain in your side and you're like, well, it's going to cost, I got a $5,000 deductible or $6,000 deductible, and I got a pain in my side and it's going to cost me this much money and, out of pocket. So I'll just, it'll probably go away. And then you know, you go to the doctor a year later and it's worse, and now you got stage 4 kidney cancer or something, and you're fucking dead, right? Like that's just, you're done. That's, you know, game's over. A year ago, probably you survive. And so 68,000 Americans die every year for that. That's 165 every day.
Yeah.
On average.
That's
so how long, like how many days are we supposed to be fucking patient, right? 165 people today, somebody's mother, father, daughter, brother, right? 165 today, 165 tomorrow, 165 the next day, 165 the next day. So what the fuck, at what point are we going to decide that that's enough of that, and we should probably start actually trying to fucking fix it?
And you know what's crazy?
Why is this controversial?
Yeah, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders or both combined, forget about it. But either one of them could call for a general strike or a whatever right now to get Medicare for all. They could have done the force the vote. They could have held their vote for Nancy Pelosi and forced a vote on the House floor. Maybe it would have passed. Maybe it wouldn't have. Does it really fucking matter? Because that's what they're there for. They're supposed to be fighting for that shit. And if they're not going to do it, why the fuck are they there?
Yeah, what get out. Go home.
Yeah.
If you're so afraid that you can't do your fucking job because a bunch of assholes showed up with zip ties, then fine, go home, resign, get a different job. Somebody else will take that one, you know. But like, why are we waiting around? Like, 165 people actually die every single day just because of the expense of having health insurance in our country. And it's been a month since Joe Biden's been in office, and we've gotten fucking nothing.
Actually, he's cutting Medicare today. Just so you know.
Yay, perfect. Oh yeah. Good old Joe.
Good times. You know, it's fine. Everything's fine. We beat fascism, guys. We beat fascism. Woo!
Yeah, and these same people like Ocasio-Cortez who are saying we need to abide by incrementalism. You have healthcare. You don't have anything to worry about. And if you want to talk about a fraud, fraud,
they got vaccinated before frontline healthcare workers did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's also absurd that I tweeted this out earlier today. I don't remember the exact words, so I'll paraphrase, but while Americans are dying from COVID-19, from despair, from chronic unemployment, from police terror, Congress is busy using our tax money trying to impeach a president who's not even in office anymore.
Yeah, that's good, right?
That's absurd.
That's such a perfect analogy for how our government works, though. Like how shit our government really is. It's so perfect. Like they couldn't have created one better than that.
And if you just like put it in words and look at it, you see how absurd it is. And it's not hard to imagine what these people are thinking, because I think they're mostly socio and psychopaths.
Or at least narcissists, you know.
Yeah, but it's still despicable.
No, I mean you can't explain it away. Although there are people that would be like ableist. I can't believe you're saying psychopaths can't be in the government.
Oh no, they are psychopaths. They're psychopaths.
I know, but you understand what I'm saying, right? Psychopath is a mental whatever, and like, oh, we're supposed to.
Yeah, like, I'm still waiting for somebody to call me out on the taxidermied jackalope that's up there, which is my girlfriend's, and I'm a vegan, so like I can't wait till somebody calls me out about that, and I'll be like, well, first of all, like. She didn't kill it. It's taxidermied. Second,
it was already dead. It was already dead when she got it.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened already, but
yeah, I am too, actually, a little bit. But
anybody,
you're right. These people.
Anybody watching?
But like, here's the thing. I'm a hunter.
Yeah.
Right. But like, I look at that. You know, like I do understand the horrors of factory farming. I do understand. You know, like I'm a huge animal lover generally, you know, dogs especially, but I've had good cats too that I liked, and you know, used to have horses when I grew up. My mom, we had horse property. She had a couple horses she'd ride around. And, you know, just in general, I love animals. You know, I don't like hurting animals or whatever. But hunting is weird because I think that from even the standpoint that I think I share with you, a sensitivity toward the harming animals and things like that, is that in the wild, every single animal dies the worst possible way. Like at the end of their lifetime, a deer or anything, similar, they get torn to shred by wolves or, bears or coyotes or whatever, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like, or they, drown to death crossing a river, and then are devoured by something or whatever. But like the way that they die is really shitty. And if you actually take pride in hunting and you really, really work at it and you get you train with your weapons so that you're accurate, in different environments and different positions, etc. Like you really put work into it. I know it's horrible to talk about, but when you shoot a deer, if you hit it right in the heart, directly, it's dead now. Like it's dead immediately. It's literally like the kindest way to do it. If you could, so that's where it's like, at least that's philosophically from where I'm coming from. I'm like, I think it's okay, as long as you do it well. But there's no excuse for taking stupid shots at a long distance and wounding an animal and having to chase it and all kinds
and
of shit. All that stuff
hunting.
is wrong.
Nothing pisses me off more.
Trophy hunting is the worst.
Yeah.
Like if you're the other thing about it is that I really believe that if you're gonna hunt, you should try to get the animals that the wolves and all them would get. It's you try to kill, a hobbled one that's limping or something, right? And then you're like, okay, or whatever, the weaker ones, because that's what actually maintains their community and keeps their really strong genes in the community. Is you get rid of the weak ones. That's what natural selection does in the first place, right? And so I think that's okay to do. But when you're shooting like the one with the biggest rack, the deer with the biggest horn, rack on his head, because it's trophy hunting, you're doing the opposite. You're taking the best genes out of that, like taking them out of that gene pool. You're taking the biggest and strongest ones, and you're saying, "Oh, I'm taking this home with me." And I think that's a stupid way to do it. It's borderline immoral. But
yeah, I disagree fully with hunting for sport, and maybe you and I can agree to disagree on that, and that's fine.
Well, it's not for sport; it's for food, But
okay. So I have a different opinion on that. I mean, I'm not, as a vegan, I'm not like super psyched about it, but the utilitarianism of it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And actually, you might have heard of him, the writer Derek Jensen. He's written about this a bunch.
Well, like vegans for hunting?
No. More so, it's there are levels to it. Like Kendrick Lamar says in his song, there are levels of morality to it.
Yeah, there's levels of everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And he's written some good stuff about fishing for food, about hunting for food, but actually, like I said earlier, sort of trying to honor the creature.
Yes, of course. I think that's a necessary part of it. Like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, and be thankful for what that creature just gave you,
Yeah. I don't think it's a cut and dried argument. Like, I wouldn't eat any of those animals just because that's my disposition.
And I wouldn't force you.
Right.
I wouldn't like sit there and be like, hey, you better eat that, you son of a bitch. I'd have like a gun.
I'm just trying to point out that as I'm sure you both know, it's it's not black and white, you know.
Almost
Yeah,
nothing
well, that's
is.
the problem with all of these conversations is that
That's
nuance
right.
is dead. People, it's
Yeah.
like you have to either agree with something or disagree with something,
Yeah.
and there is no in between.
But there's almost
so
nothing.
dumb.
Almost nothing is
No.
black and white like that.
No,
No.
There's almost
no,
zero
it's
things.
ridiculous to even like think that that's a thing that's real. That's not.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many.
Like
you
I
said,
hold a weird
so many
position on the
levels.
black or white thing, because it's a little bit topsy turvy. But it's just that I think that there are moral black and white issues.
Yes.
Morally, I think that exists.
When it comes to
sometimes
harming children, for example.
Yeah, like, you know, you just are like, oh no, we are all against that. And if you're not against that, you know, you're a problem and we're going to take care of that problem. Right. Like that, there are certain things that kind of are black and white. But it's not everything. Most things.
Well, even with that though,
gray.
it's like people that harm children were usually harmed as children.
Of course, hurt people hurt people.
You know, there is like this like gray area where it's like it's not even yes, you want to punish people, like it's not okay to hurt children, but at the same time, you have to understand that the person who hurt that child is a human being who was most likely hurt themselves, and so there's a whole other level of stuff that you have to dig into, and that's not condoning the violence against children. That's just,
of course not.
You know,
but they would say that, right?
This is a complicated issue.
The internet would say that that's what you're doing, though. The internet would be like, you're
defending
pedophilia, and you're like,
no,
I'm really not. I'm not
No.
at all. I'm saying that the pedophiles are also damaged people from their past.
Yeah,
right.
Almost
whatever
always
happened to them when they were little, and you know, so like that's not crazy to talk about.
No,
right?
there's just gray area. The gray area for everything. There's always, you know, different. Yes, hurting children is bad, but you also then have to look past that obvious truth to what's going on beneath there. You know, like what's happening.
And that's the
here.
only way to actually solve anything. To get back to politics, that's the only way to actually solve problems is to get to that root. You get down to the root and you cut it out like a bad tooth. You know, that's how you do it. You can't do it on the ends like we're doing. Like we're clipping leaves off the top of the tree and trying to figure out why this shit keeps happening again. You know, we need to be pulling the root out, you know? And that's exactly what we're talking about. Is like, if you don't acknowledge where this all started and where it came from, then you're never going to get to the actual source of the problem. And if you can't get to the source of the problem, you never fix it. And I think that that's honestly by design. I think that the two parties, that's how they run any government, state government, elsewhere, is that, but especially the federal government, because it's easiest to do, is they get everybody polarized about this or that issue. And the analogy I use is if you can imagine a quiver of arrows for like an archer, when anybody's campaigning for office on the Republican or Democrat side, when they're campaigning for office, they have a certain number of campaign arrows in their quiver, different subjects. That'll be like my immigration arrow and my healthcare arrow. And so you use those when you're campaigning, because that's how you get people to back you and support you and help you get into office, right? There's all these wedge issues. Well, if you actually solved any of those problems, you lose an arrow. You lose an arrow. Like that, it's a lose situation when they actually fix something.
Right.
So I think that they legitimately don't want to fix anything. I think
agree.
It's all a matter of perpetuating the same horse shit, just status quo.
Yeah, I agree.
Different labels, but
because those problems, you know, just to expand slightly on what you're saying, those problems are why their jobs exist, why they're in their roles, you know?
Yeah, I'm a mechanic and I've permanently fixed every engine on the planet. So I guess I'm out of a job. I just worked myself right out of a job. Like you have to have a reason to actually, you can't be so successful that you kill off your profession.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't think that's how, I mean, I think we would all agree that's not how politics should or ought to function.
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course not.
But they do. And
yeah, but that's why I'm here, honestly. And that's why I think it's important, for example, that I'm running as an independent. I think that's the one path forward that might actually get us the change that we're looking for through electoral politics.
Okay, so let me ask you then, because I am somebody that does not at all believe in electoral politics anymore. Right. At all. I'm done with it. I have no desire to get involved.
I get it.
I have I'm done.
Yeah.
So why, like, we know we've elected, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, we have Bernie Sanders in the Senate, we have Rashida Tlaib, like all these people that got elected supposedly to try to overturn the system, and I've obviously completely capitulated to corruption. So do you actually think that, like, you on your own in Congress could really, like, make some kind of a difference? Like,
no, that's not how it's going to work. I think that there's a couple of things. A big thing is that myself and one of my campaign volunteers have committed to, we're still sorting out some of the details early in the campaign right now, but we've committed to putting out a free PDF like handbook after this election that will help independents know how even to run for office, because it's a pain in the ass, all the stuff you have to learn how to do, and different types of reporting for the Federal Elections Commission, and all these other different things, how to get on a ballot, how to there's a ton of stuff that you need to know. You need to know what organizations you can work with and different whatevers. And so there's a lot of stuff that needs to get, so I'm going to put out a handbook to actually specifically help independents across the country, including like what the requirements are in their state to do it as an independent, and how that varies against the other side, because it's easy to look that stuff up.
Yeah.
And then I want to start getting more independents. I think if we can break the dam with one independent to get in a partisan district like this, under these sorts of circumstances, we get one in, and then that one, in my case, it'd be me, puts out this handbook and starts, we could start a movement where we could start kicking out both parties in districts across the country pretty quickly. And because the argument's always that the independent can't win or the third party person can't win. But if I win, you don't have that argument anymore, right? The argument goes out the window, and we can start actually working on it.
It's not even an argument, because we can all see that it's rigged against third parties.
For sure. It's hard. It is harder. But the thing is it's worth it to do it right. Like to actually do it the right way. It's not impossible. At least I don't think it is yet. But like,
I'm unconvinced, Steve. I got to tell you.
I know. I get it. But my point is I know that I'm not going to do anything on my own in Congress. It's not going to be just me in there, swinging at windmills or whatever. I want to get more in there, because I want to create a obvious trend that will force one of those two parties, at least one of them, to change their behavior and start actually representing the needs of the people of this country in order to save their jobs. I want them to be afraid for their jobs, and then they'll change how they do things. Right now, they have no reason to be afraid for their jobs. None of them do. And 410, I think, of the 435 seats are so heavily gerrymandered that only one party can hold it, maybe 400 out of 435, something like that. But it's very, very rigged, but it actually needs to get done. And the second part of that, though, is that I want to be in there doing what's right for the people, which means that I'm going to be essentially, I'm a photojournalist now. I'm a journalist and photographer. I would be acting as a journalist in DC. And so I want to expose what's actually happening while I'm there. I want to tell people about what goes on behind the scenes, who's meeting with who.
Yeah.
This is the type of stuff that I want to do while I'm there, is like to just really get in behind it.
Yeah.
And report out what I find. I think that's really valuable. When AOC got in and she said that, when she was at the freshman orientation, and she pointed out that like the people running the freshman orientation were all lobbyists. Like, she pointed that out, and I was like, yes, thank you, because nobody ever pointed that out. Nobody ever pointed that out. I didn't know that was even true before that. And then she says that, and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So it turns out it's been true for decades. Right? And then nobody just says anything.
And then she went and voted for NATO
I
expansion.
I know. I'm not saying she's awesome, because she's not, but I am saying
you're
that,
right.
like, at the time, it was a
yeah.
cool thing that she did.
Yeah.
And I think if she could have kept that up and actually kept doing that type of thing and exposing the dirty underbelly of that city, I think it would have really helped a lot. But she capitulated and started thinking about herself, I think, before she thinks about other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think you're going to be able to avoid that though? Like, do you like?
Yes.
Do you, okay.
Oh,
Because
I love when people are mad at me. So like, I can't wait to be in DC and have everybody hate me. I'm just going to sit there with the biggest stupid grin on my face, just watching them all shit themselves, trying to figure out how to get rid of me.
Yeah,
like,
it would be cool
really
if we
I
had
want.
like an insider to like whistleblow on the goings on in Congress, but that's why I just think that there's no way that they'll ever let you win. It's so rigged that they're never gonna,
it's possible, but if I get the funding I need, I should be able to verify that too. Like I should be able to verify that I was cheated, because I'll have polls and stuff like that done.
Yeah, but they don't care. Look at how many times it's been, like, Bernie Sanders got rigged in the open twice, like out in the open, and nobody gave a fuck. Nobody cared one iota.
But we will though. Like, the small number of us that are actually willing to step outside of that two-party paradigm and try to do some shit, we'll know at least. And if we know, then that's all we need, and we can move on. Figure out the other ways to do this, which probably involves guns.
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe that's something we can talk about, because I've been bringing that up on previous episodes. But I wanted to ask you, not to break it down completely, but could you highlight some of the key points of your platform?
Yeah, my favorite part is that I'm going to introduce legislation my first year in office that won't go anywhere. But it's going to be about basing congressional pay on the median wage in their district. If I can get somebody behind me to co-sponsor it, I could at least get it to a committee vote, and then we can start naming names of the shitheads who are not for that. Mm-hmm. But I think that that does a lot to solve the money in politics problem, because I think more regular type people, average people, would be willing and able to win and get paid an average wage from where they're from. Like, I think that all that would work out, as long as, like, there's a caveat that you'd have to cover housing in DC, which they don't now, like just a 1-bedroom apartment or something in DC as part of their expense packages. Mm-hmm. But I think basing the pay on the median in the district is a good way to do it. And I think that you could, you bring accountability back, because they don't get a raise until you do, until your district does better where you live. When people start making more money, then they'll make more money. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a perfectly fair way to do it, in a system like ours. Essentially
a merit-based system.
Imagine that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
who would have thunk?
Yeah. So, I like that a lot, but I'm also not a hypocrite, and I know that it won't pass. And so I know that could come across as the type of thing that somebody could be for. If you're a cynic like I am, you'd think like, oh, well, sure, he says that he's going to do that, but he knows he's not going to actually, get the median, because it's never going to pass. So he'll still get his $174,000, whatever. Yeah, I get that. So I'm going to be donating $94,000 a year at current numbers from my $174,000 to district teachers to reimburse them for supplies they have to pay for out of their own pocket.
Awesome.
Excellent. It's an easy way to disperse the money with minimal loss, on the edges of paying this person to oversee it and whatever type of stuff, like the stuff that happens with charities, they start eating up all their money coming in.
Yeah.
So I want as much of the 96,000 to go to those teachers as I can. So by focusing on one group, just teachers, it's easy to administer, but and then I'll be making the median household wage in the district at the same time, which I think should be sufficient,
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And
it's still 80 grand. It's nothing. It's not bad. And right. in the end, I'll, I priced out the living stuff in DC, because I would have to pay for that. And it cut about 35 grand or so out of the 80 that I make. But I mean, that's still like 45 grand free and clear for like 20 weeks of work or some shit. This lazy sons of bitches. So like, you know, it's still good. It's still fine.
Well, and I mean, not to mention you have like an amazing healthcare package and
I know
all of those
exactly.
things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
so I wouldn't feel put upon to make $45,000 for that much work. I would have to do, you know.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things you brought up as far as sort of educating or contributing to education to teachers is super important. And we recently did an interview with Fred Hampton's former attorney, and that's one of the things.
I'm about to watch that movie tonight.
Oh yeah, the new film.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah,
I'm hearing mixed things about it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I haven't heard anything about
Somebody
it.
I trust told me it was really good.
Yeah.
I just hope they don't whitewash Fred Hampton, because that'll piss me the fuck off.
I don't think they did, according to the person that I talked to. I think this person has good judgment normally, so I think they probably did a good job.
I'm very nervous to watch it, because I'm not even kidding. Like Fred Hampton, I would say is like top 5 people that influenced my radicalization in my life.
Yeah.
So it's
he's amazing.
Yeah, he's very important.
And
to me as well.
If I could join the Black Panthers, if I was allowed to join, I would totally join the Black Panthers. Yeah. I don't know if they would take a pasty white guy.
Probably not.
And I would understand that. I would totally understand that. But I would totally join. I love that organization so much. I really like the militant side of things. Like I think that's really, you know, when you have a right, when it really is a right, you take it. You don't ask. Right? If it's a right, you take it. It's yours. You take it.
Yeah.
You don't sit around begging, please, sir, please, can I have health care, sir? I'm so sick. I need health care. And when you don't do that, you demand it, you know?
And when it comes to armed struggle, it's not, people aren't demanding for the right to be able to kill indiscriminately.
No, of course not.
People are
just cops.
People are defending themselves.
Yeah.
That's what the Black Panthers, that's why they began. You know, they were.
And then what would we get? We got the most liberal state in the country, or actually it was Ronald Reagan, who was like this pro-gun guy or whatever. And he brings us the Mulford Act in California because the Black Panthers were carrying around guns and going to the government buildings openly armed.
Yeah.
They passed the Mulford Act and banned open carry in the state of California, purely just to get the guns out of the Black people's hands.
Yeah, that's, I think a lot of people are aware of the Black Panthers, but don't realize as much that they were an armed militant group, and that's what scared the shit out of the U.S. government, and that's why which is, I absolutely agree. And that's why Fred Hampton was murdered. I mean,
of course,
Hoover, who was like the consummate, you know, paranoid, probably closeted gay man, he's fucking terrified of, and there's nothing wrong. I'm not, if you're gay, that's cool.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that, because they're going to get mad anyway.
Whatever.
So just let it be what it is. Everybody, I think, understands.
Yeah.
Hey, but the FBI's moved on since Hoover, right? Because they it's not like they have their headquarters named after him or anything like that.
Yeah. It's not like he has, you know, like he's left any legacy behind. But point being that the Panthers got to a level of activism, you know, and it wasn't just being armed, it was the,
of course not. But it's a key element, you know.
Well, I mean, it was the breakfast program,
right?
And
the community services.
I mean, they ran like a health clinic, and they were taking care of their own, and that's.
But when you're walking around, the thing, but it's great. But the point is when they're walking around with guns, right? Put it this way: police walk around with guns, and it's not a threat necessarily, but it is, in essence, a warning. It's saying like, "Hey, you know, I got a gun, right? So like, and
Mhm.
so people are more polite to police generally, you know, in most circumstances, because it's a
Yeah.
dude standing there with a gun, right?
Right.
Like that's
And
a big
immunity,
part of
like
it.
the complete, like
Yeah, but
get
even
away with whatever
without that, the
fuck.
point is if you fuck around too much, you could end up dead. The guy's got a gun right there, right? You
Mhm.
could see it.
Yeah.
So really what the Panthers did was exactly the same thing. They just walked around with guns. They never shot anybody as far as I know. But they were prepared to, and that I think made everybody else more polite to the Panthers to their faces. The police didn't try to brutalize the Panthers to their faces when they were doing protests or anything like that, like they do nowadays. They did end up murdering a bunch of them, you know, by firebombing houses and doing a bunch of crazy shit. But that was never at the protest. It wasn't like when they were standing there armed in front of government people. The government people let them be. You know, they're not dumb. They wanted to go home to their families, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, I think that is a key thing about guns in our country, that people need to understand that a lot of harm can be done with guns, but I think a lot more harm could be done by only certain people being allowed to have them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you only have the government and wealthy people, or even just the government, allowed to have these guns, I mean, it doesn't usually work out that great. Like we have a
No.
lot of precedent about that. You
Yeah.
know, and it's not just guns, just arms generally. You know, there were throughout history, there have been times that governments have banned pitchforks and banned. You know, in China at one point, they, you know, hundreds of years ago, they had banned metal tools at
Mm-hmm.
all, which is how they developed using like bow staffs and things like that, like pieces of wood as weapons. So, you know, this is a thing that always goes on. Like, you know, regimes want to control the ability of their people to demand what they have a right to. That's
Yeah.
really all it is. So like, we need to be cognizant of that's actually what's going on, and not
Yeah.
let them pull at our heartstrings every time some horrible, awful thing happens because of guns. You know, we need to be smarter about like who's driving narratives and stuff on that end of things, I think.
Yeah. And I think that if we're serious about, let's say, revolution in changing this government fundamentally, or replacing it with something that's better, that the conversation about armed struggle needs to happen. And that doesn't mean that you're a fan of it, but
no, nobody's a fan of war. Like that's the thing.
No,
it's awful. It's going to be awful if it happens. I hope it doesn't happen.
Same here. And if you look at the you know, monopoly on weapons that the government has,
That's
I mean,
right.
we're not just talking about guns, we're talking about insane machines of
but I've put a lot of thought into this too, just as a conceptual thing.
Yeah, well that's
on the
I wanted to ask you about your point of view on that.
Yeah, well, the conceptual end of that, I think that ultimately the government can't kill off its own taxpayers and its own supporters. Like you can't just murder everybody and then still have a government. Like there's a self-sufficient part when you're revolting, where the government will not go past a certain point most of the time, because they're actually killing off their own tax base, their own population base, right? And they need that to be in power over anybody, as they need to have people to be in power over or whatever. So I think ultimately what would happen in a country like ours, where 100 million people are gun owners, it's 100 million gun owners with at least 400 million guns. I think the number is quite a bit higher than that, but that's the number that they think. and you know, and then you also look at, we have, I think, somewhere around 20 million, maybe 25 million military veterans, people who were trained in the military but are no longer in the military in our country. So you also have, and I would imagine the high percentage of that 20 million are, you know, there's that Venn diagram has a big crossover between those people and gun owners, right? Like I think that there'd be, most of them would be gun owners.
I lived with a Marine once, and he was certainly a gun owner. I can say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So
He was a
you
neighbor. I didn't live with him, but
no, I get it. But then like, you also have to look at, so that's 100 million people with probably close to 20 million, say, that are actually military trained. And the Army right now, along with all the police departments and police agencies in our country, it comes to like 6 million people.
mm-hmm.
Like they would have to kill all of us to win. And our military is notoriously bad at winning, like defeating insurrections
Mm-hmm.
too, which is how we lost Vietnam. It's how we're losing Afghanistan, et cetera, is insurrections are near impossible because you can't just go around killing everybody. You have to actually find the people that are the bad actors, quote unquote. And that's not that easy to do when there's popular support and people, like the people doing it. So I think that I do not want there to be any bloodshed on our soil anymore. I would like it all to stop if I could snap my fingers and prevent every police killing on both sides of that, police that being killed,
Mm-hmm.
police killing people. If I could stop all the violence, I would definitely do that. It's just that, but I understand, as a student of history, I understand I believe I know the path we're on, and that path doesn't end without violence. So we need to really start paying attention and start doing something, because if we don't get going right now, I think we are on the precipice of a lot of really bad shit.
And this is endlessly frustrating because you're right. We have historical precedent for this. It's not like we don't know what's coming. It's not like we haven't, experienced this before, and not personally or not in this country, but
it's worldwide throughout history all the time.
Yes,
it's always happening somewhere.
Human beings are so stupid. They can't learn from their own history.
Yeah.
And it's I've been screaming about this for years. I mean, if you just look at, just from my perspective, being a free speech activist, they've been slow walking us into this like dystopian state where everything is censored, and the only people who have any say over what is true are like proven liars. Like these are people who have lied us into countless wars, and they lied to us in Congress about spying on us. And these people are, just pathological liars. They are psychopaths. Come at me. Yeah, they're psychopaths. They're in control.
People like Max Boot who get on fucking MSNBC,
James Clapper, John Brennan,
and they just
Jim Comey, all of these people, they're nuts, and they've lied us into repeated wars.
They're not nuts.
Like devastation.
They're not nuts
across the globe.
They know exactly what they're doing.
I agree with that.
No, but they're nuts. These people, and you cannot be like a decent, sane human being.
They're not humane.
Want to like slaughter people for money.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah. But a lot of that I think is just the system itself, right? Like, the system makes people desperate and knows that there's no safety net, and when people are in those positions, they become more immoral. They'll do more awful things just to make sure that they get theirs and to have that sort of insurance. So I think that it's a top down. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One of my favorite questions philosophically is the chicken or the egg.
Well, seriously though, because positions of power attract that.
That's
kind
right.
of,
Yeah. So round and round we go.
Yes. So, it really is like which is which, but these people are horrible people, and they're slow walking us into this like weird non-reality where they decide what's reality and we have no say over what's actually true or not. And trying to get people to recognize how unbelievably dangerous that is.
George Orwell was a goddamn prophet, wasn't he?
Right.
Like,
I think
crazy.
It's worse than even he.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't believe in
at the
prophets,
time that was a terrifying. That was a terrifying book,
he's
right?
Fantastic.
And people just acted like that was like some, and we passed out a while back.
Yeah. Yes. And we have people on the left now cheering that shit on, like not even cheering it on, but like leading the charge on this shit. And it's so fucking bizarre.
Nazis. It's like, can't we just, as long as they're not actively hurting anybody, can't we?
Which there are already laws about that.
Of course. can't we just tell them they're fucking assholes and and tell them why? And try to,
or
because
just ignore them.
The oppression of the private industries that are deplatforming certain people for bad points of view or whatever, all that does is it drives the bad ideas back underground where we can't see them, we can't watch them, we don't have an eye on them anymore. And you don't want that. Like, you want an eye on these motherfuckers. You want to know what they're doing and what they're talking about. And so you know, it's like they're talking about, I think somebody mentioned that Parler is being hosted on Russian servers now, which makes it harder, much harder for our own intelligence agencies to search through Parler to see like people talking about actually going and storming the Capitol type of thing, you know, or doing something worse than that. And it's like, well, good job, everybody. You did it. You did it. You well, not that I like the government could do that, but my point is like, you know, there's always these unintended consequences of this sort of shit. And, you know, because again, we could go right back to this again. You're not getting the root of the problem. You're not getting the root. You need to find the root and cut that out, because this other shit is just what we see on the other end.
It's not even about,
it's the flower, but the flower doesn't exist without the roots.
Right.
And it's not even about the government being able to keep control over these people or watch these people or whatever, because most of the time the government are these people, or they are affiliated with these people. I mean, we've already seen that the Proud Boys leader is like former FBI, or he's like an informant or whatever.
He's a confidential informant.
So it's not even about the government. It's about
surprise.
us. It's about us being able to keep an eye on these people. It's about us being able to, you know, dispel these terrible ideas with better ideas. It's about us being able to just be able to have those conversations. Like, you can't ignore something out of existence. That's just not how it works. You can't just pretend something doesn't exist and it's going to go away. That just doesn't happen ever. So if you want to deal with a problem, you need to like acknowledge it, address it, talk about it.
And so now let's go right back, and we'll go back to guns. Okay. People obviously, for very obvious reasons, are very upset when, you know, schools get shot up, or, you know, other mass shootings, these mass casualty events. It's horrific. I was telling you earlier that when Sandy Hook happened, I was in a hotel room in Toronto working as a photojournalist, and I was going through photos and processing photos. I had my browser open over on the side and just kind of whatever, and this headline popped up, you know, like this breaking news thing about this, you know, these children that were all shot to death. And I fucking wept. Like, I cried by myself at a hotel desk in a foreign country, you know. I just saw it, and I just started thinking about those fucking poor kids getting, you know, huddling in a corner, hoping, you know, like not knowing what's going on. It's loud, you know, and it was horrifying, and I fucking cried. Like, I straight up bawled in the hotel room. But my first thought, as somebody who was already trained with guns as a kid, and you know, I've been around guns my whole life, my first thought was, how did nobody fucking shoot that son of a bitch? Like, how does nobody on campus have a gun so they could kill that guy before he kills all those kids? Because that's always a weird disconnect, that the anti-gun people see something like that. And I understand, obviously, how awful it is, but their reaction is the opposite. Their reaction is, how did that guy get a gun? How was he able to get into, you know, whatever. And it's like, you know, my point is that with over 400, probably over 600 million guns in this country, if somebody wants to do some bad shit with a gun, they can get one. They can get one. There are so many ways, you know, between theft or every other number of things.
Well, shit, you can 3D print them now.
I mean, you really can. But not only that, you could buy what's called, for AR-15s, you could buy a thing called an 80% lower receiver that's legally. So on a gun, a lower receiver is on a rifle like that, a modular rifle. The lower receiver is considered the gun by the government. So that's what has like the serial number on it. But it's actually legal. It is legal to make a gun at home. It is not legal to sell it. Okay, so that's where they control the market by controlling the sales of the guns.
Right.
The government does, or, you know, tries to keep an eye on things.
Because it all comes back to capitalism.
Right, but you get an 80% lower receiver, and that's technically not a finished weapons piece. And by law, that means it's basically a paperweight. And even though it's mostly an AR-15 lower receiver, and you still have to drill out like the trigger pin, the hammer pin, the safety detent, the trigger hole at the bottom for the trigger to come out, and the trigger pocket. You have to hollow out the trigger pocket, which is where all the moving parts go. But they sell jigs for that and stuff. So like literally, when I was canvassing in Chino Hills, it's a city of like 45,000 people, 48,000 people. It's not that many people. I was canvassing in there, and that's where I grew up. Same city, and they're pretty conservative, but just random doors, knocking on random doors or finding random people outside. I had no list or anything. I ran into 2 different people within a couple of weeks of each other who had both each made over 24 lower receivers and given them out to friends and family as gifts. Okay, just giving them away. Over 24 each, just 2 people in a small city in California. And I was like, man, that's hard to extrapolate that number, like what that actually means in the overall scheme of things, because nobody knows those guns exist. There's no record of them, because all the other parts that go with the lower receiver, your upper receiver, your barrel, your stocks, your magazines, your grips, none of that stuff has any regulation on it whatsoever.
Right.
Some of the magazines do, but you can still buy those out of state or whatever. So like literally anybody could just make a gun. Like literally anybody can just make one, and it would be legal to make it. And the thing is so once you understand that cat is out of that bag, that the Pandora's box was opened a long fucking time ago, right? Then I think once you can wrap your head around that, the next step is understanding that means that's not the way that we can fix this, because we are past that critical mass of the number of guns under which we would need to prevent these things from happening, with guns, right? So, but we have so many, it's just like you don't address it like that. So if you really want to address gun homicides, gun deaths, you want to address socioeconomic inequality, you want to address healthcare, including mental health care, you want to address, education, and helping family units. Like, for example, a thing that's not that popular to talk about on the left, but I actually believe is the importance of family units in raising children. We're talking about having people.
Why do you say that's not popular on the left?
Well, because I think on the left, a lot of times, maybe more liberal, but a lot of times there's this thought that like, well, if women want to be able to work and go and stay home with the kids or like work, then they, whatever. It's always this trade-off between how much you're going to work and how much you're going to parent, right?
So it's
so what I'm saying is
patriarchal narrative.
Yeah. And it is. Like right now, I'm the one doing that. I'm because COVID and everything else, my job got cut way back, and so I'm the one that does that right now at my house, and I love it. But it's it's a real thing. But my point is even now seeing it firsthand as a father, which I'm very fortunate to be in the position I'm in there. Watching my daughter grow over the last, she's not even 14 months old yet. But watching her grow and watching how she sees the world, and the differences that I can make in her life day to day just by being here. It's hard for me to imagine handing off my kid to some daycare worker somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And going to work for 8 hours and being able to do fucking anything at work without wondering about how good my daughter's doing, where she's at. Like, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. So I've been a stay-at-home mom my entire kid's life. I'm very, very, very lucky to be able to be in a position to be able to do that. Not everybody has the option. And I can tell you, it is a isolating and thankless job. But it is absolutely the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Being able to witness every experience my kid, it's not like I'm with them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But I'm being able to see their first steps and hear their first words,
Right.
and be able to, see them off their, all of those things. That's an amazing thing. And I'm not saying that that's for everyone. Like,
No, exactly.
women should have
That's
the
not,
choice.
that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
It's not about that, but it's about, like, nowadays we sort of force, like,
Yes.
in the 50s and
Again,
60s.
it's the nuance.
Right.
It's
In the 50s and 60s, the working classes were much better able to afford having one person working and another person staying home with the kids. And I don't care if they're both men. I don't care if they're both women. I don't care what color they are. I don't care. Right. But parents, right, have those parents home with their kids. And back then you could have one parent home all the time, because you only need to own one car, right? You only need to own one car, and you only need to do this, you only need to do that. But this is how capitalism works, right? So eventually, somebody invents newer, better things, and so you invent a car, you invent this, you invent that. Now you have an infrastructure built for cars, and et cetera, et cetera. Now cars aren't a luxury anymore. Now they're a necessity, that people have to have, and at that point, it's all out the window. But
which I
everybody
think,
has to work so hard just to keep the roof up,
I think,
above their kids' heads, that they can't spend the time with their kids that they should be. And I think that that's the way that our country is set up, and I think it's wrong. I think that people who have children should be much, much, much better supported, by their community, and that usually would mean by the government. But having support structures in place, having much longer paid maternity and paternity leave, so that people can
having more
take the time.
flexibility at their places of employment. So
Absolutely.
if they do want to work,
Yes.
they can still work. And
Yes.
because a lot of people enjoy working, they enjoy going.
Yeah, of
and
course,
doing
you don't want to do just kid thing
Yeah.
all the time. Like,
Yeah,
you
and that's
lose your
okay.
mind.
Like that's that's totally okay. And each person should be, each person is different. So, but we should offer those options for everybody, so that there's a
That's right.
choice and there's a freedom in your ability to parent your
You
child.
want to know why rich kids end up usually in better positions and go to better schools and do better in school? Like to a certain extent, kids that are more well-to-do or have parents that are more well-to-do, it's because exactly this stuff. They get the time. They get the time spent with them. I watched a special with my wife when she was pregnant with Daphne, and it was about the first 3 years.
That's a great name, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. She's everything to me, but
awesome.
it was about the first 3 years of a baby's life, from birth until they're 3-year-old.
So important.
3-year-old. And it's the most important part. And so Eric and I made a deal at that point that one of the two of us was going to make sure that we were here for the first 3 years, no matter what, that we wouldn't be pawning off our child on daycare or anything like that. But, and because that first 3 years is so important to their development and how they get their life sort of kickstarted. But like, imagine how much better, if you can look long term, imagine how much better our entire society would be if all parents had that option.
Mm-hmm.
If all parents had the option of being at home and taking care of their child and not being forced into this system of abuse that we have,
Yeah. It's basically come to the point where, you have a kid or you have kids, well, better find a job, because otherwise you're not going to be able to.
And that's the opposite of what we should be saying, because the goddamn kid needs its parent around to be able to get them, pointed in the right direction and shit. You wonder why we have all these school shootings, these kids lose their shit.
Yeah. It's
not hard to figure out. Like, just look around at what we're forcing onto our own populace.
There's definitely a complex of reasons for the school shootings, but I think one of the primary factors is the alienation or estrangement that these shooters feel from being
Yeah,
detached in
well
whatever
documented,
ways.
right? It's very well documented.
Yeah, and it's not an excuse. It's
No, but again,
trying
let's
to
get to
figure
the
out
root
why.
of the problem.
Exactly.
And then we can
Exactly.
actually dig it out and maybe solve it, but until,
Right.
while we're just sitting around jerking off, looking at all, like, oh, well, if we just ban this type of gun, and it was like, I got a meme that I posted a little while back, but it was like, it's just a funny meme picture of like one of those hippie type chicks, like a very bohemian chick with like, like dreads or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, if we would have just had one other law, that guy never would have broken the law, right? Yeah. Because murdering people is already against the law, right? So it's already not okay to do that. So if somebody has the impetus to go murder a bunch of people, I mean, do they care if they break a gun law too? Like most of them kill themselves, like at the end of it too. So like the whole thing is just kind of ridiculous. And I had a whole, this is where it gets really controversial, is way before I ran for office, on the website Thought Catalog, I have 2 different articles that I wrote and posted there about guns. And the first one was about arming teachers. It was about arming teachers. And it was right after Sandy Hook, because I was just everything that was on my mind. And what I came up with, which I think would actually work, I still think it would, but if people get very mad at me, is just making it a path for teachers to be able to be armed, which would include the same background checks the police department gets wherever they are, and the same minimally, at least the same gun training and everything as the police department gets before you're allowed to do this. And it would have to be a concealed carry, where nobody should know that anybody because the big thing that scares me is that these school shooters will eventually be able to figure out, and they've done it a few times already, is people, or mass shooters generally, will target the uniformed security first. They'll shoot that person because it's easy to spot them. And if you get rid of them, then you got the rest of, you got free reign. So my idea is to make sure that if any teachers on any campus actually decide to do this, which is a big if, right? That it would be concealed so nobody would ever know who. And I think that that's the big key to it, is you could have a deterrent effect by making it secretive in this case, insofar as saying which specific faculty member is or is not armed, because there may be none. I think most schools would still have none, but the fact that there is a policy in place that allows this thing to happen, I think would be enough to deter a lot of those things. I think that, making, but like, as we've seen, because and there's 2 more parts to this. The other part is that we've seen teachers use themselves as human shields to try and protect their children. Like the teachers care about those kids like parents do, in a similar way. Not,
good
obviously
teachers
to that.
do.
Yes, but most
good
are
teachers,
good teachers. Most of them are, and so I'm just saying, like, they really care. Whereas at Sandy Hook, it doesn't get talked about a lot, but for 5 minutes, the first cop that showed up to Sandy Hook, despite his policy of it at his department, department policy was to engage active shooters immediately and not wait for backup. That was their policy. That guy heard the gunshots, stopped at the top of the driveway, way away from the school, and waited over 5 minutes while he kept hearing the gunfire, waiting for backup before he went in, because he's a fucking coward. Like, there's no way you could have stopped my ass going in there, right? Because again, I'm in my hotel room and I'm imagining what these poor kids are going through. There's no fucking way I could have lived the rest of my life having let that happen for who knows how long before somebody else shows up. So that's number one. But also the Douglas Stoner or something like that, but the school in Florida.
Oh, Douglas Stoneman, yeah.
Stoneman, yeah. The school in Florida, the cop refused to go in there too, cowarded out. So like the point is I think that it has to be people who actually give a shit about the kids. I think that those people are the ones that have to be able to make a decision and have a process in place where they could decide, because they should not be expected to have to carry a gun at school to do their job. They want to be teachers. That's fine. But if certain teachers, like when I was growing up at my high school, there was a teacher who was a Vietnam veteran, and he went by Standing Deer because he was a Native American, but he also was a Vietnam veteran. And he he would have been perfect for this, right? Like that type of guy. He was an amazingly level-headed man who had actually seen combat, right? So like somehow made it through that okay. And so I know that those teachers exist, people that would take this on themselves and could actually make a big difference in circumstances like this, as rare as they are, and so I just think that that's actually probably the right way to go. If you want to stop it immediately at the school, I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I agree with that argument, and I think
I have mixed emotions about it. I'll be honest.
I know it's tough to think
but
about.
here's why, because you're right. Like there are a lot of really great teachers and principals and school staff who are amazing individuals who truly care about their kids. And for example, in Sandy Hook, the principal like tried to attack that guy. That's how she got killed, is she was trying to take him out,
of course,
unarmed.
Because she cares.
Yes,
she cares about the kids. The cops didn't give a shit.
Yes, I get it. But here's the thing, though. I also, I have a child who's autistic, and I have heard an unbelievable amount of horror stories about truly evil teachers who 100% physically abuse their special needs students. And those teachers do not need to have a weapon.
No, I get that, but I think that bullies aren't. It's not. I don't think that those are even though they're shitty teachers, I don't think they're going to shoot up a kid. They're not going to shoot a child.
I don't know, man. Have you heard that?
I had some shitty teachers, but I never felt like any of them would have shot me.
No, I've never had a teacher that I thought would shoot me, but I'm saying that like the teachers who are in the special needs classrooms, there was a child that they killed because they like basically did like neglect. Well, no, they like kneeled on top of him. And basically smothered him to death. They will lock them in rooms.
No, I know. I've heard, I don't even want to talk about it. I'll get so fucking pissed off.
I know. I have a kid who has autistic. Like I have to worry about these things.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But yeah, and yes, and these are teachers who pass background checks. These are teachers who are approved to work with these kids. So I'm very mixed on it. I agree with you. But then there's this other side of me that's like, do these people really need to have weapons?
But I would hope that because again, we're narrowing it to a point that these would be very specific people who even wanted to do this. And like I said, I think it would have to be concealed, and you would have to make sure that nobody knows who, if anybody, has a gun on campus. I think as soon as a teacher even slips and a kid sees the gun or something like that, then that teacher can't do that anymore. Like that, they lose their privilege as far as I'm concerned. I think that would be fine to do. But it's I just have a really hard time hearing these stories about these teachers jumping in front of bullets and all this stuff, and knowing that the cops are such fucking cowards and that they're just gonna, we talked before. You need to arm the people who care. Like that's really what it is.
Yeah, like I said, I have a child with autism. One of the kids in Sandy Hook that died was autistic and was being shielded by his classroom aide. My kid has classroom aides. They're the most like caring, loving people that I've ever met. We've gotten really lucky, but I've also heard horror stories.
It sucks so bad too, because I get this ad on Twitter every now and then from one of the Sandy Hook parents and talking about gun control and like pushing this thing. And I feel so awful for the parents, and for the kid too, but the parents are the ones still here, and I feel like I can't even imagine what would happen in my life if something like that happened.
Right.
Like it would probably be over, I'd probably kill myself or something like that'd be the only, I just can't even imagine how I would deal.
Yeah.
Maybe I wouldn't, but I don't know. I don't even like to think about it.
Yeah.
But to think that something like that happens to somebody's kid, it's really actually difficult also to have a level-headed conversation with somebody in that position. Like I think that's expected. I don't think that it's not a criticism. It's just like, what do you expect? Like, you're not going to be able to talk sense, if you will, into somebody about talking about 80% lower receivers like we were talking about, the number of guns and the tipping point on that, or any sort of number of things that we could talk about to try and have a rational discussion about gun control when somebody's lost their child in a shooting like that. Like, you can't even have that talking. And the cynic in me tells me that that's why that person's in that position, that the people in power put people who have that argument, that indefeatable argument, that nobody can argue against this person because of what they've gone through, you know, and that makes it really tough. And I mean, it's the same impetus behind identity politics and a bunch of stuff like that too. You know?
Yeah. I'm just gonna look up this this quick song quote that you reminded me of it, but
did I write it? I've written a couple of songs.
No, it's by this band. It's by this like punk band called Strike Anywhere from Virginia.
Oh, that's a good name. It's a good name for a punk band.
I don't want to butcher it, so I'll look it up. But
yeah, Jesse is like really good at like coming up with music lyrics that could perfectly fit what we're talking about, or like drawing like some random quote from some book from like out of nowhere. Like he does this all the time, and I'm always like, how do you keep this shit in your head?
The thing on the gun thing, but when you find the lyric, just let me finish, and then we'll do that. But
I actually just remembered it, and it's just static quotations and historical lies don't mean nothing when your children die.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's 100%, and it's accurate.
Yeah.
But you know, getting back to the whole idea of revolt and all that stuff, I really think that if the people were in a position to demand and were prepared to start doing something like that, I think the government would capitulate pretty quick. I really do, because I don't think that's a fight that they could win without turning into exactly the people that they attack every other country in the world for. You know, they would have to start drone bombing their own country.
I mean,
not just their own citizens in another country, but actually their own country.
No, but if we could actually get people to be willing to work together and do like an effective general strike with mutual aid that make sure that everybody's taken care of, we could bring the government to its knees within a couple weeks.
Yeah, but so check this out though. There's an analogy I like to use. I used it a couple days ago on the other podcast, on the Fruit Basket podcast I was on. But I think about like the oligarchy, the powers that be, if you want to like think about them conceptually as like a boardroom full of rich people who.
And that's exactly what they are, really.
Oh, kind of, yeah. But like one boardroom, right? Mm-hmm. You go walking into that boardroom. Like, please, sir, can I have health care? I really, really want health care. I would desperately in need of health care, and I really want help. They're like, fuck out of here. You know, they call security, you're gone, right? Like, they don't give a shit. If they cared about your health care, they wouldn't be in the boardroom, right?
If they cared about our health care, they wouldn't be wasting their time right now.
We would have it already.
Of course.
On impeaching a former president. Like,
so you need something with which you can negotiate. You need a demand for negotiation. You need to make sure that they know that they have to negotiate with you, right? Because right now they don't have to, and that is a gun. If you change that same scenario and you walk in with a rifle and you say, I demand my health care, you get your fucking health care.
Yeah.
And I think that is really the point. And it's not about, I don't ever want us to revolt if we can avoid it. I'm not powerful enough, nor will I ever be, to either cause or prevent a revolt. But I don't ever want there to be one. But I think if there ever was one, of course, but I think if there ever was one, I think the people would win pretty quickly on that, because the government would have to stop short of what it would actually have to do to win. Like, morally speaking, I don't think they could do it.
And you know, I'm of two minds about that. One half of me thinks that the government wouldn't capitulate, and it would just go all out with everything it has, and then
throw us in the gulag.
No, because the cops are people too, even though it's hard to imagine. It's true. So all the people that would be the ones that are tasked with going out and killing Americans, the Americans that are tasked with doing that, a large number of them would eventually and probably very quickly not do that anymore.
I'm skeptical of that, actually.
I think that's what would happen. It only has ever worked when it was rounding up the Japanese before World War II, right? Mm-hmm. That was an othering of people of Asian descent, right? And so the othering thing always works especially when there's a physical difference that you can point to.
And that's
but when it's just the general public, I don't think that could work. And a lot of the people that are the gun owners that ever talk about this sort of thing are white. Like a huge number of them are white. So
yeah.
And just
the police and the military aren't going to go around and shoot a bunch of white people.
Maybe.
Not yet.
I don't know.
I just don't think it's going to happen.
They're currently right now trying to label all Trump supporters domestic terrorists, and they're all pretty white. So I am very skeptical that that's accurate, because I think that right now that's the new.
I think that's just posturing, though. There's no way they could actually do that, you know. But
they're doing it.
No, I mean they're talking
Patriot Act
about
2.0 is on deck.
I know.
It's on deck. Like, do not underestimate what they are willing.
I'm surprised
to do.
it wasn't already passed.
It's coming. Like,
I thought it'd be like January 21st.
I have been trying to scream at people about this for years, and it's happening, and here we go.
I know, me too.
You know?
Yeah. No, I think.
But ultimately, I do think there's a big point here, which is that we it would definitely not be better if we weren't armed, right?
Right.
Like, that's the other half of that is it's like you can debate the merits, you can debate the possibilities of success, but I think it's a pretty difficult argument to make to say that with a government and a system that treats people with such brutality the way that ours does, that we should give up our guns and it would be better if only they had the guns. I think that's an insane way of looking at things.
It is insane. And the way I look at it is I am completely anti-cop. I support the abolition of police. And I think that I'm not calling for a free-for-all for purchases of guns, but I think citizens who are concerned or afraid about these basically, most of them are I've dealt with a lot of cops in my life, unfortunately, and they're sociopathic and psychopathic, just violence workers. As Alex Vitale. I don't know if you know him. He wrote this really good book.
I'm aware of him.
Yeah. So I interviewed him about a year ago, but he said cops are violence workers, and I thought that was.
Yeah, like sex workers.
Yeah, but like.
Yeah.
I mean, I support sex workers, and.
Well, they're not going around hurting nobody.
They're weapons of capital. Like they're there to protect the power. And
right.
Well, put it like this. This is actually believe it or not, this basic concept I'm about to lay out is I got initially from Thomas Paine.
Okay.
Who wrote Common Sense during the Revolution. He was a British guy. He actually more identified as British than American, I think.
Yeah.
But he was a key influence on the founders and the founding of this country. And he wrote a thing called Agrarian Justice. It's a pamphlet and an essay. And that essay, Agrarian Justice, is like it lays out logically and systematically why our society works the way that it does, and why, and the way he thinks it should actually work. And the points he makes in that is like he compares humankind a lot to animals and like nature. He talks about nature a lot. A lot of those guys were deists, so they believed in a general higher power or something, but not in a god that played any role in your day-to-day or momentary life, nothing like that. So he was a deist too.
Like a nature spiritual.
Yeah, nature's God is a thing they talk about. Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he was a deist too, and so he compared society to nature a lot, and he pointed out that like there's no such thing as poverty in nature, right? It doesn't exist. It's a creation of society, because society creates laws that protect property. Right. And so that's really what the laws of societies are built upon is property protection. Yeah. Right. That this is mine and I have this and that's that. And so all of the law enforcement and all the other stuff that comes along is all reinforcing this this idea, because that's the core, the essence of what it is that they're tasked with. That's the essence.
Yeah, and I think if you look back at I want to get this right, but the G7, what went down in Seattle in '99 when you had the Black Bloc, who was just, it was
wasn't that part of? No, it wasn't. I remember though.
I forget the exact conference, but it was a conference of, global capitalist oligarchs. But the whole criticism, or not the whole criticism, but the main criticism against the Black Bloc anarchists was that they destroyed property. And it was like, who gives a fuck about property? Like, who cares about Starbucks's front window?
Who gives a shit that Target burnt down?
Yeah.
I could give a shit. I just
really don't care.
Yeah.
I have like, who cares? Oh, a company that pays starvation wages to their employees burnt down, and now they're going to have an insurance company pay them the value, which is not even going to come out of their own pocket. And then we're going to employ a lot of people building that Target back up again.
Mm-hmm.
So where's the negative? Right. I don't know where the negative, the pollution, maybe that's the only negative I can imagine is the actual pollution of burning things. Outside of that, I'm like, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah, no,
I don't give a shit.
I think you bring up a really good point, though. That's often, it's brought up, but I think it's not focused on enough, is this obsession with property over people. And it's weird. It's disgusting.
It's really weird.
Well, but you have to understand the roots of it, though, is that a lot of these people, most people, even in our country, you could say, they're not wrong in understanding that this is a sink or swim deal. That if you don't, if you can't tread water, you drown. Mm-hmm. Right? There is no safety here. Like, very comparatively small safety net here. So that breeds this way of looking at things. If you could have a functional fucking government that would actually do what it's supposed to be doing by representing the people that it's actually meant to tasked to represent, and actually doing what's in the best interests of its own populace. If you actually had a government like that, the greed wouldn't exist to nearly the same extent, because people would not be so afraid of why they have to save all this money, or why they have to do this or that to get ahead, to make sure their kid can go to college, to make sure that they do this, make sure they do that. And just like all this stress of just having to, like, because outside of the billionaires,
all the
which should not exist,
you're supposed to hit.
Right. But outside of billionaires, which I don't believe should exist, I think that we should abolish billionaires. I think, anybody with that kind of money is a threat to our democracy itself, because they can pay off all our politicians and everything else. So, I would rather have 1,000 millionaires in my district than 1 billionaire, right? And it's the same amount of money. So it's $1,000 million bucks. Right. So, outside of billionaires, though, when you're talking about regular people in regular lives who are just trying to get by, middle class, lower middle class, upper middle class, whatever, all these people are trying to survive in a system that even if you got 100 grand in the bank, even if you're doing pretty good, comparatively speaking, like, that's really not that far away from losing everything in this system. You get cancer, and and like 100,000 is out, it's gone, right?
Yeah,
it's fucking gone. And then you got to mortgage your house that you got. Maybe you inherited a house from your mom or something, right? And so now you have a house, and you're happy you have that. But then, like I said, somebody gets cancer, you get cancer or something like that. Now you mortgage your house. Now the banks get your house, right? And like the whole thing is so fucked.
So it really is.
And it doesn't really matter what your station is, like, job wise, because I worked for a year as a contractor for Microsoft back in 2008, and shortly after the crash of 2008 is when I left. Because I just couldn't take it anymore. It was just a horrendous place to work, even though the pay was really good. But
I would imagine,
yeah, when the crash happened, though, a lot of people who worked there, their their partners or their spouses, they worked at these financial companies, and they were just told, like, yeah, you're done, like, everything's falling apart. And so I don't want to, like, denigrate them. Like, they're still human beings, and I could see,
yeah.
At least in, not the people who were laid off, but their spouses or their partners. Like, I could see how hurt and scared they were.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, it's not just, it'll come from most people,
Yeah.
it's not just
Yes.
it's not just confined to.
They will eat it all. They will
Yes.
eat
Yes.
all of it. They
Yeah.
will,
Yeah.
if we let them, they will eat every
And we're
fucking
letting
thing.
them. We're fucking
Yep.
letting them. We're letting them. Like, I mean, look at all these, mergers, these corporation mergers. Like, they're consolidating power daily,
Mhm.
daily. Like, it's a handful of people that have all of the power, and we
Mhm.
just keep shoveling more to them, and that is unbelievably dangerous, you guys. Like, this is not a good plan. I don't understand why that's something that we're allowing to happen. Nobody's paying attention. I mean, look at the amount of power these assholes have. It's crazy. I mean, they control your government, they control your social media, they control your news media, they control everything. I mean, they have full control over so much of our lives, and we just keep shoveling them more power, and just keep electing people that keep shoveling them more power, and nobody is fighting back against it. It's crazy.
So,
And one of the go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, we were talking about song lyrics or something. There's a Bruce Springsteen song, and I know he's a little bit on everybody's shit list because of the G bad, but there's a really great song.
What's that all about?
Oh, well,
He
during
did
the
a
Super
G
Bowl, he
bad in
did
the Super
some
Bowl.
G bad that was about, like, everybody should just come together and shit. It was horseshit. But
Yeah. But I love my Jeep. I'll say that.
And I love Springsteen, honestly. I think he's a fan. He's one of the greatest songwriters.
Yeah, I actually.
He's an out of touch douche canoe now, but yeah.
Yeah, but he still has this incredible talent, even though he's an out of touch person as a person. He still writes some of the most incredible shit, like stuff that you could really believe in, and it's just really bizarre to know that it comes from a guy worth $500 million or whatever.
I know.
But
my favorite record of his is the one with Incident on 57th Street, I think it's called, and it's just like him on the cover, like a close up of him smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, I don't know.
Shit.
I don't know. Everything's digital now.
It's one of his. It's one of his earlier. It's one of his earlier ones.
Yeah. But, well, so this song is called "Death to My Hometown." It's from 2012.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's kind of like the thing that Bruce Springsteen does a lot is he does different genres of music, like styles of music and stuff. So this one's kind of like it's got like bagpipes, but it's almost like a marching song, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the pace of it and everything. And it's basically exactly this, but he says, well, no cannonball did fly, no rifles cut us down, no bombs fell from the sky, no blood soaked the ground, no powder flash blinded the eye, no deathly thunder sounded, but just as sure as the hand of God, they brought death to my hometown. And it's talking about Wall Street.
Right.
So he says, so no shells ripped the evening sky, no cities burning down. No army stormed the shores for which we die. No dictators were crowned. I awoke on a quiet night. I never heard a sound. The marauders raided in the dark, and they brought death to my hometown. Right? And the last part of it,
that could have been written about Walmart.
Oh, it's amazing. But this is my point. This is like 2012. Yeah. He's already very, very wealthy. He's very out of touch already. But somehow this guy, like, I don't know, it's his talent. It's it's just a thing. But the last verse, he says, they destroyed our families, factories, and they took our homes. They left our bodies on the plains. The vultures picked our bones. Right. And then he says, so listen up, my sonny boy, be ready when they come, for they'll be returning sure as the rising sun. Right. And and he says they ate the flesh off everything they found. There's another late lyric in that. And the point is that is exactly what we're up against. Like the top people, the Jeff Bezoses and and all these people, that it's an insatiability, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are insatiable. There's no way to
Yeah.
satiate them and get them to be like, you know what, $100 billion is enough, right? Like that.
No.
There's no end to it. So something has to be done, you know,
Yeah.
legally or otherwise.
100%. Yes. And this is so frustrating to me, because I think one of the most awe-inspiring things about humanity is that we have legitimately evolved to a place where we could, if we chose to do so, take care of every human being on planet Earth.
Absolutely
we could do
could.
that. We could absolutely do that.
But where's
that's
the money in
amazing.
that?
Who wants to do
That is-
that?
I know, but that's amazing. Listen to me. That's amazing.
I
That
know.
humanity in this short, if you think about it, this short span of time that we've been on planet Earth, that we have evolved. And listen, I know that we don't really have like a basis for comparison here, but to me, that's pretty fucking cool that
Right,
we've evolved
well,
to a
so the
place
thing
where
is-
we have that capacity.
No,
And
we
we
haven't
choose not
evolved.
to.
The problem is we haven't evolved. The problem is
Right.
that we our knowledge has expanded,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
so that knowledge has created this ability, if we chose to enact said ability. But our morals, you know,
Our consciousness.
has not evolved, and we are
That's
still the stupid apes throwing poop at each other.
That's fair.
And,
Yes. That's
you know,
100%
so it's like what would happen if you gave chimpanzees AK-47s? You know, like pretty soon there'd be no more chimpanzees.
Right.
So like, you know, I think that, yeah, we have a long way to go, and I think that we can get there. I have to believe that we can, because I have a daughter. So,
Right.
you know, I don't really have a choice, because I'm 43 years old with a 1-year-old, and like I'll be 44 next month. So like I'm going to graduate, or when she graduates high school, I'll be 60. You know, and I have a family history of cancer and a bunch of shit. So like I'm not, you know, I ain't counting on being around that long. So I have to make sure that when I leave my kid here, that you know, I put her in the best position I can. And so I don't, because I'm not going to be here, and my kid's going to be stuck living on this shithole planet with a bunch of everybody else's kids, and that goes right back to that whole childcare thing. But like all these other kids that don't get the proper child rearing or whatever because of the system that we're in, my kid is going to be on this planet with them.
Right.
You know, all those little shitheads. So, you know, like this is a problem. Like, we
joke about this on the Vigil all the time, because Steve Poikin and Slow News Day, Action for Assange, we're both extremely cynical and very like just negative Nancy's. And people will ask us all the time, like, why, like, okay, so you don't think that anything? Yes, obviously there's like this little tiny spot in my cold, dead heart that like believes that we can actually make a difference. Otherwise I wouldn't fucking do what I do.
Right.
But you know,
you're not setting yourself up to be disappointed.
No, I'm a realist. Like, I understand that this is a giant.
I mean, all pessimists, by the way, all pessimists call themselves realists. You know that, right? Like,
yes, I do. I'm a pessimist.
Don't call themselves pessimists.
No, but that's, I mean, I'm not a pessimist.
No, I know, I'm just
Really?
George
but really?
George Carlin, he had a quote. He said, scratch a cynic and you'll find a disappointed idealist.
Yeah. Yes.
And
100%.
That's all it is. I'm a disappointed idealist. I am a cynic, but I it's not like I got here by accident. Like, look the fuck around. Like, look what's happening.
Know. That's what I say all the time.
Like,
look around.
Yeah, you know, it's not crazy to be a cynic now. You know, I think that's
it's crazy to
survival mechanism.
I think that's the wrong label for it. I think it's being misapplied.
Well, I think there's a negative connotation that maybe it doesn't deserve.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of being a cynic is considered negative, but
I mean,
cynicism is sometimes correct too. Like, you can be right and be a cynic, and I think times like these, you're often right and a cynic. I think that the cynics.
I'm tired of being right, to be honest with you.
Me too.
I'm really tired of being right.
I think if you look at the world now, just take a Marxist material reality perspective, the world is fucking horrible. And that's not cynical. That's just
reality,
objective reality.
Well, I mean, so let's play a little devil's advocate.
Okay.
I think things overall, in many ways, are better now than they were 50 years ago in many, many different ways. I think that we are still making some progress. But I don't think, I think progress is being systematically avoided and circumvented. Yeah, but or just what's the word, hampered, handicapped, whatever way you want to put it. The progress that we could be making, there's an active fight in high levels of very powerful and rich and powerful people that are preventing those things from happening. It's not that humanity as a whole doesn't understand the benefits of certain things or whatever. It's just that we don't have the power, or at least we don't know that we have the power. Yeah, well, we haven't used it. We're the Democrats of that, right? So just making sure that there's a lot of really awful shit going on right now.
Yeah.
But I don't want, I just always push back a little bit on the feeling that it's worse than ever or something like that. There's we go to the 60s.
Well, I won't say, I certainly won't argue that.
Worse,
I can't say it's worse than ever, because I'm 37. I'm only 37. So obviously I haven't been around.
But it is bad. I ain't arguing that it's not bad. And I think that, all these awful things that happen, talking about mass shootings earlier, talking about all the thousands who die from lack of medical insurance. And it's literally for the insurance part of it. That's the point of it. Yeah. And then there's the 100 people killed by police every month. And on, and you could get into and those are all systemic issues, right? But then you get into the home issues that come from that. You talk about all the domestic violence and the mostly women killed by men, in homes. And it's just there's a lot, and with the internet, you see it all, right? You see these stories and I think it's more in your face with how maybe that might be part of what makes us feel so lost. But
I think you're right
reality,
with that.
But the reality is that all that stuff aside, we still don't have a government that's going to actually do anything to help at all.
And in fact, they're going to actively work against you daily.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is a huge problem.
Yeah.
And yeah, the general strike thing, we need to do that too. But the problem is the people I think people at the top have enough money and power and everything else now that, they might capitulate something small to a general strike like that.
$600.
It would be something. It would be something relatively small that they're not giving us Medicare for all, right?
They might give us a public option or some.
But we're not going to get the real shit, the thing that we actually want, unless we went on strike for a long time.
This is what they always do. They throw us just enough crumbs to keep us from genuinely rising up.
Yeah, but the problem is that they've been fucking with fate a little bit there and trying to see how more of those crumbs they can take. We'll take a couple more, see if they notice. Take a couple more, see if they notice. They're trying to find. They're so greedy. They can't just fucking be rich and still have a populace that's mostly okay. They actually have to, they're trying to get every little bit. They're trying to take every fucking crumb until it's such a point that they're going to get themselves killed.
Well, I don't disagree.
That's how it happens.
I don't disagree with you. And, but what you just said reminds me of what Chris Hedges has been saying for a while, is that these people know what's coming. They know the collapse of empire that's coming. And they're ready for it, fortifying themselves for that.
Yeah, but they're not going to be able to. Again, the beauty of the awfulness of having 100 million people with 400 to 650 million guns is that you just you're not going to get away and still be here somewhere.
Do they have bunkers?
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but they can't stay down there forever. They can't. Like,
well, they can outlive us down there for sure. I mean, those things can.
Yeah, but we're not gonna get to a point where everybody just dies anytime soon, right? Like that's not going to be a thing. As the ice caps melt, it's going to do a lot.
Know.
But like,
listen, I have
there might be warfare.
There
there might be open warfare and shit on the surface, and they're in their bunker doing whatever. But in the end, like there's still going to be people here when they run out of supplies. Like it's not going to be a fresh planet for them to repopulate with their spoiled, rotten little fucking kids.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we are living within the death of the empire. I've been saying this for years. And the problem with that, and like, I wish I could like have some little bit of positivity, but the United States of America is the largest empire that the world's ever seen. And it's the most powerful. And the fact that it's collapsing is not going to be good. And it is. Yeah,
but how dumb is it? How dumb is it that it's only collapsing because like 1,000 people want to keep their power and money?
It's incredibly stupid, but that's where we're at.
Like 1,000 people. Yeah, it's insane. Like it's completely nuts. And the thing is like, I really do believe that, I know you don't like the electoralism. I get it. And I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong because you very well could be right. I'm just not convinced yet. Right.
Mm-hmm. I get it.
But I understand. I understand why you feel the way you feel. And I recognize it. But I do believe that, and God, this sounds so fucking arrogant. I hate sounding like this, but it's just the best example I have because there are so few people that are actually trying to do this as an independent, specifically as an independent. We just need, I can't say it like that. That sounds so arrogant.
Who cares? Just fucking say it.
We just need more people like me. That's what I was going to say. Who are willing to, who are the assholes, who are willing to be assholes, who know that like, who don't mind being considered assholes by people, like who don't, because what happens is most politicians, I think, want to be accepted. They want to be popular and accepted and loved and care, right?
Access to power is a huge thing.
I couldn't give a shit about that, right? But most politicians, that's what they want. They're seeking the adoration, right? And whatever, and the support, and it makes them feel like they're, and I think when you start from that perspective, those people are already the wrong people for the job. Mm-hmm. So you get an AOC who stands up against Joe Crowley and she talks about the right policy stuff and this and that, and then she gets into office. But ultimately, she still really cares more about what people think about her than she cares about and about her own self, her selfish being. Yeah. Than she does about the things that she talked about before she got in office. So in the end, you end up with exactly the same shit because all they want to do is get their make themselves feel better. Well, if people are seeking approval of other people, and if that's a thing that they actually look for and they love and they strive for, when they go to Washington, D.C. around those people, guess what? They're going to strive for their approval.
Right.
That's how the fuck that works. Exactly. Right. That's the irony of electoral politics is that the people who are usually most able to win are the wrong fucking people for the job. And not just because they're supported by big business, all this stuff. I'm talking about like their core psychology is the wrong
and that's the way the system is designed. It's designed to attract those people and to prop up those people and to, you know what I mean? Like the whole system is designed around in ensuring that those are the kinds of people who are
right. But let me talk about myself for a minute. Let me talk about myself for a minute. No, I'm going to just tell a quick autobiography. Okay.
I'm going to run to the bathroom real quick. I'm sorry.
Go for it. I raced motocross growing up. So I had it was a very individual sport in a way. And there's a lot of hardships that come with a sport like that. It's very, very difficult. And there's a lot of injuries and a lot of other stuff. So you have to really learn how to pick yourself back up after you lose, you hurt yourself, whatever, and get back on and do it again. You have to know how to fail and march forward anyway. You have to accept failure as part of the process, and you have to hate failure to the extent that you're going to work as hard as you possibly can to prevent it next time. right? So as a course psychology, I started racing when I was like 9 years old or something. So this is like a very core of who I am and that type of person. But I'm also the type of person who never, you know, at least from like puberty on, I never really tried to fit in with anybody. I was bullied when I was younger than that. And I think that I stood out to be, you know, I just didn't like being around. I didn't like groupthink. I was kind of naturally wired against it. So, you know, and I would make fun of like goth kids at my school because I was like, oh, look at how different we are. We're all different the same way, you know? Like, so you're not different, right? You just picked a subset group now that you're going to belong to. So my point is that I've never really had a desire to fit in. I've never really had the ability to fit in most of the time. Like I you know, I got along with all the different groups. Like in high school, you talk about like you got your stoners, you got your musicians, you got your you know, football players, jocks, and
you're a former you're a chameleon. You're just like, yeah, because
I was class clown, right, in high school. So
well, like I'm that way. Like I was a chameleon. Like I could fit in anywhere.
Yeah,
so
I could fit in with any group,
yeah,
any of those groups. I could go and hang out, and we were all fine.
Yeah.
But I was never part of the group, and I never wanted to be part of the group. And you know, I know that I have a very particular, like I'm weird. I know I'm the weirdo. It took me a long time to figure that out, but I know that I'm the weirdo in that, in all this stuff. But I also think that there's got to be more people that are weird in similar ways or something out there who don't require, yeah, right, who don't require this adoration or whatever, and actually stand on principle and enjoy pissing off shitheads. I love it. I can't, like, if I can get to DC, I can't wait for there to be a line of people who hate me. You know, I would love it if both parties would spend millions of dollars trying to kick me out of my seat just because they hate me so much. If I could accomplish something like that, I would feel really good about it. Because I just could not give a shit about any of that stuff. And I think that those are the types of people that, so it's not me, like me, but people who have this, who are wired that way. I think those are the right people to get into power, because they don't even like the power. You know, I don't.
But the problem is those are, and just speaking for myself, but those are usually the people who want nothing to do with being in charge. Because I do not want anything to do with.
Yeah, but who's going to do it when you're not in charge? Like that. That's the problem I ran into, because I feel the same way. But I'm sitting here like, you know, like I said, I think I said this on the other show, but you know, when I decided to run the first time, I had just turned 40, and I was driving up to a race in Sacramento. So it was like a 5.5 hour drive. And I'm just driving and I'm thinking, and I'm like, how the fuck old am I going to be when somebody actually comes along that I can support politically, that I really feel good about getting behind, you know, that I would be like, yeah, this person really gets it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I mean, am I going to be 50? Am I going to be 60? Like if I'm 70 when that happens, or 70 and that never did happen, I'm going to be fucking angry at myself. I'm going to be really mad. So it was right then, because you don't know how that's going to play out or anything. So that was when I decided, like, I guess I got to do it then. Like I got to actually become the candidate that I would support, mm-hmm. right? And then try to see if that would work, right? And so that's what I'm trying to do. But I think that, you know, I get that you don't want the power. I don't want the power either. But if I can't wrestle it away from these assholes, then somebody else has to, you know, because they can't have it.
Right.
Like it's not good to let them keep it, you know. So we got to figure out a way to get it back to the people at large, you know, allow the people to have the power, you know.
Yeah, I fully encourage and support your effort, and I think it's if I may use the word, noble, because it's certainly not an easy thing to do these days. But
no, it's a pain in the ass.
I'm curious though what your perspective is on like the larger system in general, because I feel like if you become a cop, you enter this
I know.
huge system of police, and you become subsumed.
There's a certain amount that you become desensitized to, because that's what you're around.
Yeah, there's a corruption that subsumes you, that you think you're going to be bigger than it or better than it, but it's bigger than you. And
no, I get that.
How do you feel about that?
I think that's probably a real thing for most people, but speaking for myself, I don't know how this will work for other people, but for myself, I have like an insatiable curiosity. Like, I'm curious, very, like, perpetually curious about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that curiosity has led me to becoming a very, very good mechanic, to the extent that I replaced, I actually rebuilt my truck, my Toyota Tundra. I rebuilt the engine in it from the crankshaft out. Like,
oh, wow.
I took it completely out of the truck, completely tore it apart, and rebuilt the whole thing and put it back. And I put like 60,000 miles on it. It runs perfect since then. And I did that all just by curiosity, wanting to know, because it broke and it needed to get fixed. But also, I'm like, I know some very smart mechanics. I also know some very dumb mechanics that are still really good mechanics.
Yeah.
So I figured I could probably figure it out, right? Like, I'm not that dumb. So it's just one of those things, like, I wanted to know. So I learned how to become a mechanic and how to do all that stuff. And so I can fix just about anything mechanical anymore. I'm also a woodworker. I do a lot of woodworking projects and things like that. And I love creating things with wood and useful things, decorative things, whatever. I'm a guitar player. I play blues guitar mostly. I've written songs and I've written poetry. I'm a writer for a living, so I write, like, generally speaking, which is a
same
bit of
here,
an art.
actually.
And I'm a photographer for a living, which is also an art.
Nice.
And then like, I also love to read nonfiction. I read tons of science and history and just a bunch of stuff. And so where I'm going with all this is that if I were ever to get in DC, I don't feel as if that's the only thing I could do.
Mm-hmm.
Like that in order to survive, I have to be a representative in DC or something like that.
Right.
Nothing that would keep me there outside of just wanting to get shit done, because ultimately it would still be keeping me from my daughter for weeks at a time and stuff like that. And I'm not going to like it. I'm definitely not going to like that shit. So, but I will always know that if and when the Congress thing goes away, if I ever get voted out, after I win, that I'll be fine. I'm just going to go on to doing whatever it was I was doing before, and stuff that I want to do. And, I'm a jack of all trades kind of guy. So, but on the other end of that, which is kind of funny, this is also a helpful thing. This what I'm talking about right now as a politician is very helpful, because I can identify with a lot of people when I'm out talking to them, and they tell me what they do for a living. Oh, I'm a nurse. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm an EMT. I actually, I went to EMT school and stuff. So like, we can talk minor medical stuff, right? Like, or, first responder type stuff, or, racing motorcycles and whatever. Like, if somebody has a Harley, I could talk to them about their motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about, I think, that is kind of powerful about showing up at somebody's house as an independent who doesn't have a party and being able to identify with the person no matter where they stand. I did that. There's one part of 2020 election before the pandemic came or 2018 election, maybe, I don't remember, they blend together, but I was canvassing a neighborhood right near where I grew up in Chino Hills, in the poor section of Chino Hills called Los Serranos, and that's where I grew up.
Okay.
There was two houses across the street from each other. The first one I went and talked to was a Hispanic guy from Tijuana who moved here in the 80s as an illegal immigrant in the 80s and got amnesty under Ronald Reagan. Mm-hmm. And he's got he had like a Nissan Leaf plugged in the front of his car in his front yard, and super, super nice guy and everything. And he put my sign in his yard. And then catty corner across the street from him was a guy with a Ford pickup truck with a Trump sticker on the back and a flagpole that he installed himself, and all this sort of shit. And I went over there and talked to him, and he put my sign in his yard. You know, and afterward, I stood in the middle of the street for a minute and kind of just, because it wasn't a busy street, but I was just like looking back and forth at the two because it was so weird.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it's really not though.
You two
it isn't, but
yeah, I know, but I was just thinking, like, you guys should really talk to each other. Like, you guys should just go talk to each other.
Exactly. That's such an important point. And
you know,
my parents,
but that's the power of an independent too, and that's part of why I think this is the right way to do it. Is that when you knock on a door as an independent, or just in general, this is how it goes 99% of the time. You go dunk, dunk, dunk. This is how it goes. Not dunk, dunk. And they're like, yes. And I'm always wearing a suit. I wear a suit because I have some outlandish views on some things, like legalize all drugs. And if you say some shit like that and you're dressed in like cargo shorts, they're not going to listen. Right? You wear a suit because you're going to say crazy shit, and they'll be like,
they're looking at your cargo pockets. You're like, what do you got demos in there? Or what?
Yeah. So, but like, so you knock on the door and they answer the door, and it's like, and they're like, yes. And I'm like, hi, my name's Steve Cox. I'm running for Congress here. And I reach my hand out and shake their hand. And they immediately cross their arms. That's the body language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
99% of the time, they cross their arms and they go, which part? And I go, I'm an independent. Yeah. And 99% of the time, they go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like that. And then they start talking. They're like, well, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? You know, and then and they engage. So you actually have to discuss with them what's going on. Whereas if they were a Democrat and you were a Republican or vice versa, or even if you were a Green Party or a Libertarian, like, people still have a preconception about what those things represent. So when you knock on somebody's door, it's hard to get them to listen to you. But as an independent, there's a huge amount of power there because there's a curiosity, and people are like, oh, well, okay.
Well,
so
then what the fuck do you stand for? Yeah.
So what do you do? So like, I'll have conservative people a lot of the times that will say like, oh yeah, well, I'm a Republican, so tell me one thing I'd agree with you for. And I'm like, I don't want to ban any guns. Yeah. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they start listening. All they need is that one thing. And then they're like, oh, so, you know, what about my, you know, you'll talk about healthcare or whatever. And I'll bring up Medicare for all. I'll explain to them how it would work. And by the end, they're like, oh yeah, that actually seems like that would be a good thing, you know, like, and I'm like, yeah, imagine that. Right. And so they just want to know that you're not the enemy. That's the starting point. And being an independent sets you up already. And the only people that ever acted negatively, literally the only people, have all been liberals.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. But I think you bring up a really good point that the face-to-face interaction is so important, because that's when you really get to explain.
And that's going to be hard right now.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a
definitely
of a stumbling block, but
definitely
you know, we all have the hands we're dealt, right? So but it's also a strong point for me as a candidate, like my ability to do that. And I fucking hate doing it every single time. 100% of the time, I don't want to knock on the door, and I just, you know, I feel like I'm I always do knock on the door. Yeah. Like I follow through it, and that goes back to what I was talking about with the motorcycle racing thing. It's like, you know, you have somebody slam the door in your face, you got to be able to still knock on the next door.
Yeah.
You have to, because you know, you have to understand that it's bigger than you. It's bigger than your feelings and your insecurities, you know, like there's bigger shit going on. So
yeah.
And I think that actually is a really good, like, learning, like, this is a good teaching moment, because so much of the conversation right now is, oh, well, you can't talk to those people, and you can't talk to those
I would
people.
love to go on Tucker Carlson's show. I would love it. I would fucking have so much fun making fun of him right to his face.
I would do it if I were invited.
But that's self-defeating, though, honestly, because then you're never going to be invited back. And he's one of the few people in mainstream media who will actually have people on to discuss.
No, but you understand what I'm saying. Like,
I get it.
I wouldn't hold back on him. I wouldn't necessarily dig up other stuff, but like, I might make fun of his name.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he would probably laugh at that, to be honest. He's kind of self-deprecating, but you know, this whole thing where we have, you know, boxed ourselves into these teams, and you can't talk to anybody outside of your team. You can't work with anybody outside of your team. It is the most self-defeating, infantile bullshit.
It's the perfect way to maintain the status quo. It is exactly how it is.
And I can tell you that just personally working on the Assange movement, because I used to be one of those people who was a leftist and was kind of like snobby about it and was like,
Shit
oh, I'm so
bag.
much better than you. And I know all.
Shit lib.
Yeah,
You're like a
no,
shit
I
lib?
wasn't a shit lib. I was like one of those snobby leftists who
Okay.
like, I have all the answers and I don't want to talk to anybody outside my team. Not really to that extreme, but you know what I'm saying.
Wait,
But
were
I'm
you
not
were?
that way. Yeah, I talked
You're
to.
not anymore?
Am I a leftist who doesn't want to talk to anybody?
I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm just fucking with you.
No, not at all. But that's what working on I'm so thankful to my experience working on the Assange movement, because that is genuinely where I learned that post-partisan activism is not only possible, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
Like you cannot, if there's something I care deeply about, press freedom and free speech.
So do I.
It is a huge issue for me. It's a huge issue for humanity. And if you really care about something, you should be willing to work with whoever the fuck you need to work with to get it done. Period. Like, I just want to win. I just want to ensure that we
Exactly.
have press
Back to the
freedom.
motorcycle thing. Look, I'm just trying to fucking win.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do run for office with different things, talking about like, I'm a Green Party, so I'm going to try and win a seat as a Green Party. But like, they always usually know that they're not going to win, I think. So it's just about like sort of participating in the democracy and giving people a third alternative or third party alternative to protest vote to. But fuck that, dude. I am not about protest voting. We have to beat them. We have to. Like, that's the thing. We have to. It's not like, oh, it'd be nice if. No, like literally nothing is going to change unless we defeat both of those parties at least a bunch of times, because we need to get them to understand that they could both lose that seat. They can both just fucking be asked out of the whole thing. And because right now, when they know that there's that controlled opposition, they know that they like, well, I mean, yeah, maybe a Democrat will take this seat for a while, but we can always possibly get it back. Like all it takes is one misstep by that party and then we're back in, or vice versa. And like, so it's not really a threat. And the people that pay both parties off, the oligarchs, the people that make the marching orders,
Sheldon Adelson,
they're the same people for both parties in most cases, like, or at least same industries. So the two parties, like, even if they lose, they win, right? Like, so it's not a big deal. You just have to present the alternative. So, Hillary Clinton, didn't think she was going to lose, but they gambled on allowing Donald Trump to run because they made him a Pied Piper candidate, but gambled on him because they thought she could beat him most easily. But they also really didn't give a shit if he won, because if they really cared about whether he would win or not, they wouldn't have pushed for him.
And if they really were worried about him, he wouldn't have won. Like that would have been taken care of.
Yeah, they would have ran a better candidate. But ultimately it's where your priorities lie, right? And so their priorities are money and power for themselves. That's the priority. So you have all these groups like Centers for American Progress and Neera Tanya's place and Correct the Record and all these other ways. I think
she's she was at CAP.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I don't know. There's like a fucking rogues gallery of acronyms of.
But what I'm saying is these are all part of this apparatus, right?
Yeah.
And so this apparatus is all about taking in money. I mean, and the only times you can really see it directly is like if you look at the Republican National Convention donors on Open Secrets and the Democratic National Convention donors. Like in the 2016, you'll see that Blue Cross Blue Shield gave both parties over $1 million.
It's the same people. They are owned and operated by the exact same people. We do not have two parties. We do not.
So it's one party. So the point is that like, as long as that's the case, they care about bringing in money to their little organizations and their little pet whatevers and making sure that the people that scratched their back in the past are still going to be able to scratch their, that they'll be able to scratch their back in return and keep this relationship going, so it's all about just taking care of each other. And
that's it. If their campaign fails, they still want their institution to be around.
Put it like this: Gil Cisneros, who just lost his seat in the 39th district, right? By the way, by far the dumbest man I've ever met. Like, who's not medically dumb, right? For like a medical reason. But he just lost. That dude, he's now a super delegate in the Democratic Party for forever, I think, because he held a federal seat as a Democrat. So he's now a super delegate. Like, the party keeps him in there, like, as part of their thing. So he gets to decide who the next presidential, candidate or whatever is going to be. So,
it is like a giant incestuous blob of corruption. That's all it is.
So like, we have to win as independents. I really believe the independent thing is the actual answer. I really, really do. And I've been talking to an organization called the Good Party. I had one meeting with them, and they're going to be getting back with me here hopefully soon. There's an organization called the Good Party, and you can find them on Twitter, although I don't have their handle straight away, but I did tweet about them a little while back. And what they are is it's a startup, and the guy who's backing it, the funder, is like a very, very wealthy guy he was like one of the guys who started Instacart and a couple other things. So he sold off his whatever. So he's like a very, very wealthy guy, but he sounds like a leftist to me, because he talks a lot about how it was very lucky. Like the people that I talked to, they talked about him and said that he always talks about how lucky he is to have been in the position he was in and to have made all this money. And now he's trying to take that money and create this thing to try and bring power back to the people themselves. So, and his whole organization, the Good Party, what they're trying to do is legitimately push independent candidates, specifically independent candidates. And they came to this conclusion the same time or after I did, but not related to me at all. But they came to the conclusion about independence as well. And so they're working on putting together, they're going to have like basically a whole social media platform where and they're going to be targeting disaffected people who don't vote, which is the hardest group to target, but the most necessary for somebody like myself to win, because you can turn a certain number of Republicans, probably more Republicans than Democrats in my experience. You can turn a certain number of them. But ultimately you need to get the people who know that the system is fucked and it's screwing us all over. You need those people to still show up and vote for you at the polls. Like, you need to bring that 40% out that don't vote. And I think that like they've got a good platform where they might actually be able to make that happen, create a sort of a self-perpetuating viral support for independent candidates wherever they're running.
So let me just follow up on that. And I think you acknowledge this, and I feel the same way, that the system is fucked. How is it possible to work within it to...
Oh, no, you're not going to work within it. What you do is you get in there and you mock the shit out of all of them all the time. You relentlessly troll them whenever they're holding a fucking vote for some horse shit, like naming the official flower of some bullshit, or some nonsense. And you show up to that vote and you take your speaking time and you berate all of them for doing it. You talk about all the things that we actually need in this country. And you say, look, all you people in this room are going to vote on this meaningless shit that's not going to help anybody, right? You're going to rename a post office or whatever the fuck it is. You should all be ashamed of yourselves, and your constituents deserve better than you. And just do that, and then just walk out and don't even vote on it.
Yeah.
Just leave, because like, make it beneath your time to even participate in this stupid dog and pony show horse shit that they try to push around all the time. I think that's my strategy. I
have been calling for that for ages. Like, I keep telling people, what was the point of electing the squad? Like, the whole point was so that they would walk into Congress and flip some fucking tables.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, like, call out some shit.
Make them uncomfortable.
Yes, make them extremely uncomfortable. Call them out on a daily basis. Go after Nancy Pelosi on a daily basis.
I will hold
give a fuck
press
about
conferences
Republicans
so often that the press will stop coming because they'll just be like, God, this guy's just going to say the same thing again. And then I'm just going to live stream it because that's the power of the internet. I'm just going to live stream
we have it
to people, right?
Yeah.
So, but my point is like that, you know, I said this on on the Fruit Basket podcast a few days ago, but like I was talking about, you know, it'd be great. Everybody's talking about how horrible it was that insurrection happened or whatever you want to call it at the Capitol. And I'm like,
that wasn't an insurrection. That was a coup.
Well, whatever.
I'm just kidding.
I didn't think it was that coup. But...
No, I didn't think it was a coup either. It was a mob. It was a mob of
dad joke. That was a dad joke. I caught it.
Joke.
That was a dad joke.
Okay.
So
Get it?
No, so I was just saying, like, they're talking about like all that, and I said, you know, the sad part about that, and I really do mean this, the sad part about all that is that it takes you having to invade the Capitol just to get in.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are our representatives. Those are the people that have signed up, that fought for the job to represent us in that government, in that body of government, and get a meeting with one. Get a meeting with AOC.
And listen, you know what pisses me off the most?
Like live in her district and get a meeting with her. See how that works.
But here's what pisses me off is the people who, the insurrectionists or whatever, like they were there protesting election integrity. That should have been Bernie fucking Sanders. That should have been Bernie Sanders and his supporters
he's the
calling for election integrity, calling out the fact that the primary was rigged against him twice openly, like out in the open. We have
Bernie makes me so mad because I loved
unbelievable scumbag. Sorry.
I loved that man when he first showed up. Like I was following him on Facebook and stuff like that back as early as like 2011 or something. And then when he decided he was going to run, because he kept saying shit that just made sense, you know, like because he was saying the same stuff forever.
Yeah, I've been a fan.
And then he decided to run, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so like even during this last primary run, I posted like, this is my president, and it was this rant he went on about, like when he first got into Congress and he was down on the floor and he's like, I know it hurts your feelings, but we're not going to have another war. I know both parties, you guys are in here all sad because you won another war, but you're not going to get it. Like, and just like mocking the warmongers and shit in Congress and whatever. And I'm just like, this guy is the guy I want, but that's not this guy no more. Like something happened. At some point,
I mean, back in '98, he voted for.
He's never been that guy.
The bombing of Kosovo under Clinton. So he's not.
And I mean, he voted for.
But people make mistakes. So like maybe he had some back information that maybe. I'm just saying, you can excuse one or two errant bad things, right?
Mm-hmm. It's not.
I think that's.
Well, you're more generous than I am.
You're way more generous than I am.
Because I think that there are extenuating circumstances that could cause somebody, like for example, he berated everybody about the crime bill in '94. He's on the record. You can watch a video of him talking about doing exactly what it actually did, putting all these black and brown people in prison and destroying whole communities, et cetera, et cetera. And he was talking about that beforehand, and then he voted for it because it had the Violence Against Women Act attached to it. So there's shit like that happens that I think that, I still think he should have voted no because, but politically I understand because he legitimately does want to stop violence against women, I would imagine. And so whatever, but, like I would have demanded that be put in its own bill, right? Like, and make it its own thing, because that's another thing they do to fuck everybody over. But
that shouldn't be like a pork belly issue.
But the guy that exists now that was going around on the fucking late night talking to people and saying how while he was still in the race, saying how Joe Biden is a decent man and a good friend.
Fuck you.
And who can beat President Trump and all this stuff, when the whole point was he was supposed to be making the case why he was the one to be able to defeat President Trump. And he's out there just like all that shit. I'm just watching him.
And that's all while they're openly cheating him. Like,
and he has to see it. He has to see it. But like I talked to like JV grads about this, and he said, because he was working with SEMA's campaign in Texas.
Oh, Johnny Gross. Okay.
Yeah. And so he was working with her, and he said that like every time they came in contact with the Bernie people, that the impression they got that was that Bernie just didn't even see it, like that he was oblivious to all this shit going on around him. Like,
I have a really hard time believing that.
I'm
He's
telling
not
you,
an
that's what
idiot.
he said, though. That's what he said. And he
I
doesn't
mean,
like Bernie anymore either, by the way. He's not a Bernie
he
guy.
Russiagated himself. So,
Yes.
I mean,
No, I know.
I mean, this is a guy who attacked his own supporters, like on national television.
But here's the thing.
Zephyr Teachout under the bus, and he's a
Here's
scumbag.
the thing. Why? But why would you? This is the part that always gets me: is why would you spend that many years as an independent, right? Staying independent.
He's not really an independent, though.
But he was, though.
In name, sure.
Okay. Yeah. But I mean, even before that, like when he ran for that seat the first time and he lost, he still beat the Democrat that was in that race. So he got second place and the Republican incumbent won. But he beat the Democrat right away. So he cost the Democrats that seat because if his votes would have gone to the
that's
Democrat.
why he went to Democratic Party politician school and got his mind right. And
but that's what I'm saying is right. So something happened. That's my point. Is that something happened at some point
in the 90s? He made a deal with the party. He made
whatever it was, whenever I don't know. But he started out right. Like he started out right, I think. And and then something fucking I don't know, man. But like. It ain't going to happen to me because, ultimately there are very few people whose opinions I appreciate or that I respect about me and that I care about me. It's my parents, my wife, and my kid.
Yeah.
Fuck everybody else.
Right.
If all those people are fine with how I am, who I am, what I do, et cetera, we're good. I mean, outside of myself, obviously. So like, that's all I really give a shit about. So this sort of stuff's just not going to happen with me. Like if that becomes my choice, if my choice is legitimately between, kowtowing to the establishment in some significant way, to keep my seat, I'm fucking leaving. I don't want to do it.
Dude, don't you worry because people ask me all the time because I am unbelievably cynical and I'm very, hard on politicians. People ask me all the time, is any politician ever going to be good enough for you? And the answer is no. Fuck no, not ever.
That's fine.
And it shouldn't be for you ever either.
That's right.
The politicians should be like unbelievably scrutinized daily. Yes. That is the whole fucking point. That's your job.
But somehow they've worked it out where it's the opposite of that. Yes. And I don't fucking get it. Like, well, but yeah, you're 100% right. Like anybody seeking any sort of a position of power in society, period, should be looked at with with a lot of skepticism, and that skepticism should be constantly maintained.
Yes.
And so even if I can earn, and because this is me, I am seeking a position of power, right? I believe I'm doing it in a different way. I believe I'm doing it for much different reasons, but I'm still doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to avoid telling people to trust me because I don't think that's a safe thing to ask people to do.
I immediately red flags, boom, 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 boom,
right,
boom. Right. Anybody that says trust me, I'm like, go fuck yourself.
No, I know.
Nope.
But at the same time, I've been saying this for like 4 years, and I'm at the point now where I'm like, this is probably my last run. Because if this shit doesn't work out, if something doesn't work, whatever, like I got to figure out what I'm doing with my family. Like if we're going to stay in this country, if we're leaving, if we're going to, whatever, but I got to get a plan going.
Right.
Because I got to take care of my kid.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'd like to do it from inside the government. I'd like to put this plan into effect and actually start to change our government, which would help everybody. But if I can't get that done like this time in this third attempt, I'm just going to take care of mine. I have to. It's my obligation.
Yeah.
And, that's what you sign up for when you become a parent, I think, so you kind of, that's where you are.
Absolutely.
I'm not sacrificing my kid for anybody else's kid. Like that's
right.
I'm sorry. Like that's just
absolutely.
How it is.
And
that's
like how it is. How many years are you going to spend, spinning your wheels?
Right. But what I'm saying is
not that the try isn't worth it, but
no, of course. But now that this probably is my last attempt, if I fail, if I don't fail, then I'm obviously, I'll be in office and I'll be available to be elected. I'm going to do minimal campaigning and all that stuff because I don't believe that should be a thing. The people should know I'm doing a good job because I should be communicating with them and telling them what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And I shouldn't really have to run really hard to keep a seat. I think if it's done right, that's how it could be done. And so you know, because of that, I have been saying, trust me a bit, because I need to, the one thing that I need to do this time that I've never done is raise money. I need to raise money, because if I don't, I'm going to lose again. Because you have to get enough money out there to communicate with 800,000 people in a district. It's 800,000 people basically, 500,000 voters. So
sorry to interject, but
it costs a lot of money to talk to everybody.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Is there a financial quota that you have to hit?
Have to? No, but I think that $150,000, I think I can get I'll get in the final two. Like, I think I'll make it through the jungle primary if I can make $150,000, bring in 150 grand. And then after that, I don't think I even need that much. I think I could do it on less, and actually win the general, because I can run against either party. Like, it doesn't matter, because my positions are what they are, and it's nonpartisan and anti-partisan. So there's no, like, if I run against a Democrat, I'm just going to be advertising to all the Republicans about them wanting to take their guns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's easy. But I have to raise money. So 150,000, what that would get me is, it would get me access to a thing called PDI, which is a way of contacting people in your district by virtue of how they voted in the past or what their party affiliation is, age ranges, where they live, et cetera. It's like this really amazing information thing. It's all based on registered voter data from the counties and stuff.
Does that stand for something? PDI?
But yeah, it's Political Data Inc., I think, maybe.
Okay.
Something like that. It's close to that. But PDI is like $7,000. Like, that just by itself, just the access to that service costs $7,000.
That's ridiculous.
Or
so
you could
we should maybe talk, because I don't think we did this when we were recording. I think we talked about this before we started recording. But when you ran last time, you only spent $500.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I spent $500. I got almost something like 8,300 votes, like in the ballpark of that, and it was like 4.8%, almost 5%. I got less than 1,000 votes less than Cenk Uygur did, a district over from me.
He spent an ass ton of money.
He spent $500,000.
Yeah.
And so that makes me smile.
Yeah.
My girlfriend and I were just railing against him earlier tonight.
He sucks.
Yeah,
but
Cenk, if you're watching, fuck you.
Yeah, I watched him get his ass handed to him at Politicon in LA. They had this political event, and he got his ass handed to him in a debate with Ben Shapiro.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, how do you lose to Ben Shapiro?
Ben Shapiro, really?
Yeah.
Ben Shapiro kicked the shit out of him. It was awful.
So
I was there. I was in the room, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, buddy. Like, oh.
Yeah. It's really
He kept yelling, Google it, man. Just Google it. You'll see.
Well, he's
like, that's not how this works, bro.
Such a narcissist, though. Like, I mean, if you watch his conversation with Kyle Kalinske about Russiagate, he is incapable of ever admitting that he's got something wrong, or that he's incorrect, or that he has the wrong information. Yeah. He is like the quintessential narcissist. Like, he is a terrible human being.
So he just reminds me of a guy who, like, he would be like an upper level manager at Microsoft, like, with his stupid suit and his like.
Yeah, he would look right, but he wouldn't do anything right.
His like corporate attitude.
Everything wrong all the time.
Yeah,
but he shows up on time and he wears a suit. And then
I'm at this point, I'm so fucking sick of hearing about him. And
but like, my point is 5% of the vote for $500 is like, it's pretty good, 4.8%.
Yeah.
And imagine what you could do with the 150,000.
That's right. And my whole message that actually achieved that. So another thing to put into
perspective.
Perspective on this is that in 2018, I was in the same race. I got like 900 votes or something, like almost nothing. I spent like $5,000, but I got almost no votes. And if you add it up, there was like 17 people in that race. But if you added up all of the independents and third-party candidates that were in that race, I still got more. I got almost 4 times as much votes as all of them in that race did combined by myself on $500. And my whole point of it was, my whole pitch, if you will, was simply that the parties are the problem, that the people that we keep sending to DC are causing all these issues on both sides, and that we need to kick them both out of office. That was my whole thing. It was like purely an anti-partisan thing. Sure, I have all these positions about Medicare for all or Green New Deal, all these different things that I think need to get done. But I didn't run on any of that shit. I just basically said these people suck and we deserve better than them. And even though I could only reach a very small number of people on the budget I had, I did really well with that message. So I'm going to carry that message forward. And if I can do that with more money behind it, to get it out there, to get billboards, to get more targeted advertising online through Google, Facebook, etc., these sorts of things, and then start to open things up. And on that 150, it's all 150 grand. It's all budgeted in there, but it's also budgeted in there for the last 6 months of the campaign, to budget for having like a full-blown office with like calling center, budgeted for hiring PR people and stuff like that to help me get into newspapers and things like that, to like, open doors for me to get into certain things. It's just all the things that I know that would have made a difference in the last runs, or I'm trying to address those things, and they all cost money. So like, I know that we all talk about like, how trust me is bad, and I know it's bad, but I'm still saying it. Like, you got to trust me just this one time. Like, give me a shot. People have to, like, if you can throw $20 at me, I'm trying to figure out with CrowdPack why there's not a thing on there that says, like, that gives a monthly recurring donation thing, because I've been kind of pushing for that, but it's not on there.
What is it? CrowdPack?
CrowdPack is where is my online where people money can go in, like using credit cards or whatever. But they won't let it be like on, or they don't have a thing set up for me anyway for like monthly or anything like that.
Recurring donations.
Payments. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, what I'd really like to get is people giving me like $5 a month, right? So if I could get, hold on one second. Hold on. If I could, on this $150,000, I can address most of those things that I felt like I was lacking, and the ability to reach the people. And at that point, I just have to have faith in myself that people, and have faith in the people themselves, that when they see the genuine article, when they see somebody who means what they say, who tells you the truth, even if you don't like it, if those people can decide to support somebody that they might not even agree with, I think that's a real possibility. I think that presenting yourself as a true and honest person who tells it like you see it, calls it like you see it all the time, and whatever. Like I know for a fact I got, as a pro-choice person, I know for a fact I got quite a few pro-life people voting for me the last time because I talked to them.
Right.
And I explained to them.
Well, I think authenticity is so, people are thirsty for it. They are tired of these, celebriticians, as what I like to call them. They're actors. They're not genuine people. They don't have actual ideologies. They don't have any actual policy positions. They, just do as they're told. They capitulate to their donors. They're not real people. Yeah. And I think, I think people are so thirsty for that, and thirsty for somebody that actually represents them, that, when they see that, I think that's, unfortunately, Bernie Sanders really helped to destroy that illusion for me. And that's, why it's difficult for me to even give two shits about anybody. No offense to you. I love you. But it's really difficult just for me to give two shits because, Bernie Sanders put out that whole same persona, and, and that's not to say that you will do that. I'm really not saying that, because that's,
I'm not being defensive. I get it. I just don't want you. There's a saying I really like where they said, nobody has ever been offended by a statement that doesn't apply to them.
Right.
That's a good one.
So you can say whatever you want, and as long as it doesn't apply to me, I'm not going to take it.
And it's really not a personal thing. It's just, Barack Obama was very good at pretending like he was, for the people, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was very good at pretending like she was for the people, and Bernie Sanders and all of these people. And so it's, I'm not saying.
I know, but none of those. This is the real difference. I think the real difference between me and those people is none of those people were like trolls, right? People that actually like it when shitty people don't like them.
Right.
Like, I like it when shitty people don't like me. I like getting under their skin. I like it. I thrive on it. It's like fucking nutrition for me.
Yeah,
I want to like just eat it in. It gives me energy.
I think their fatal error, all of them, was cultivating a cult of personality for themselves.
Right.
And, again, this like idea that they have to be perceived as perfect or
their brands
or whatever it is, because it's even not even just about perfection or whatever, but it's like the labels that people put on themselves, like, I'm a progressive, I'm a this, I'm a democratic socialist, I'm a blah, and I'm just like, dude, I'm just a guy, like, I'm a guy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that accuse me, if you will, of being a progressive, and but I don't own that title. I don't take it. Like, I've never called myself.
I don't even know what that means anymore.
Well, what does it ever mean, right? That's
I
the thing about
reject that label entirely. Anybody that tries to call me progressive, I will fucking fight you.
Right. So I don't fight, but I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Like,
I don't either.
Whatever. But like, but on the other end of it, like, the only labels that I call myself are, direct labels, like my name, but like, I just say I'm an independent politically. I'm independent, and on the political compass, I'm a left libertarian.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like, that's as far as anybody needs to know. And even by saying left libertarian, I've found that even running into right-wing libertarians, that they engage and that they actually appreciate talking about this stuff, and will even agree. They'll even agree with me on certain things. Like when I start talking about, for example, captive markets, because right-wing libertarians love talking about, like, free markets, the free market.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But free market, we're the market. We, the people, are the market. So when we're the market for something, like healthcare, well, when you need healthcare, you don't have a choice. You have to get it, which means that it's not a free market, because you are not free to say no.
Right.
You in order for a free market to exist, you have to be able to say no to all options in a realistic sense. So, as a human being who needs healthcare, you're a captive market. So they can charge you whatever the fuck they want to, because what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to die, right? So you bring that up to right-wing libertarians or even Republicans and whatever, and they kind of go like, "Oh, I never even thought about that,"
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, well,
I'm not a right-wing libertarian
around,
or Republican, but that's a new and I think very valid and nuanced point for me.
Yeah, and it's an easy way to explain it too. And this is a thing I came up with long before I decided to run, but it was a thing that I came up with, that I was like trying to understand the machinations, if you will, of a system and why it works the way it does. Because again, always curious guy. I'm the guy who's always digging farther. I want to see what's below that, and so it's just how I'm wired. But that's true across the board. You talk about, so in one of my policy positions that I think is actually the right way to do things is that I'm not a socialist. I think that the free market does actually work when it's a free market, when it's actually a free market. And a decent example of that is televisions. Like, television technology has been getting better and better. They're bigger and bigger and clearer and brighter and cheaper all at the same time. If you've noticed. That's because there's a wide, it's not just because there's a wide variety of people making, or companies making televisions, and a wide variety of retailers selling them, but it's also because nobody needs a fucking television anymore. You don't need one. Yeah. So if you don't need one, you can walk in and see all the TVs and all how cool they are, but if none of them meet your desires at the price point that you want, you just leave.
Right.
So if they want your money, they have to make it cheaper and better, and all the things that are happening. Like, that's how it works. That's how a free market actually can work. And in free markets, specific things, those work fine, and you don't need to fuck with that. You don't have to. But all the captive markets should be controlled by the people somehow, either through their government or directly through co-op ownership or something. But like oil, energy, internet access, water, healthcare, these things should all be controlled by the people themselves and and have the prices controlled and everything else so that it's done for the benefit of us. Anything like that, it's a captive market where you actually have to have that product that's done for profit, is theft. 100% of the time you're getting stolen from, because they're always able to charge way more than it's actually worth, because that's how it works, because you have no choice.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we've seen the US empire especially experiment with this. For example, when Bechtel was in I want to say it was either Ecuador, Peru, or Chile. I could be wrong on all three of those, but anyway.
Racist.
There was a severe water shortage. So Bechtel, which is a company Donald Rumsfeld used to work for.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that sounds right.
They came in and tried to privatize access to water, and the people there, the people there said, no, we're not going to accept this. And they rose up and
good.
They
kill any of them?
I don't know, but they got them out, and they got their rightfully free access to water. So
let me say this then, because I so my point is that, like, labels, the problem with labels is the labels more or less set you up so that every answer is the same.
Yeah.
Right. The answer to every problem is the same, and that's simply not ever going to be true. Problems vary, so do the answers to those problems, right? You have to be smart enough to try and analyze the problem for what it is, and then try and address the problem, by cutting the root out, like we were talking about. Mm-hmm. So, that, I think that's how you have to look at it. So when somebody says, "Are you a socialist?" I'm like, "Yeah, sometimes,"
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but no, not overall. Like, if you're saying, "Am I a socialist?" that to me means, do you believe socialism is always the answer?
Right.
And I don't. So.
Right.
I'm not a socialist, right?
Yeah.
But it is sometimes the answer. Sometimes the free market's the answer. Sometimes, sometimes it might be something wholly different. But, like, for example, there are choices that we can make. A lot of us can make in our own lives. One of those choices that my wife and I make on a regular basis is we do all of our grocery shopping at a store nearby us called Winco.
Mm-hmm.
And Winco is employee owned.
Mm-hmm.
So we buy everything we can that they carry. We buy from Winco.
Is it a collective?
And they happen to have, it's employee owned. So I don't know if it's collective, but it's employee owned. That company has something like 400 millionaires working there because of their stock options and stuff as they've grown the company. But the point is that the people who work there have a vested interest in the company itself. And they don't have these capitalist oligarchs that are telling them what to do.
Yeah.
Like, they own the company. And so, but the thing about Winco is, and this is going to sound like an advertisement, but, like, they don't advertise because, right? But
right.
But they whenever you go there, if you're looking for a certain product, you can ask almost anybody on the floor, anybody who is wearing a Winco name tag. You say, "Hey, what about this thing?" And they'll be like, "Oh no, it's coming in on Tuesday. We got a truck on Tuesday. It'll be here then. But right now we're out." So, but they always have answers. They know what the hell's going on, and it's amazing. And their prices are great. The prices are way better than, like, the chain store, like the big chain stores like Albertsons or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's a really great place. And so it's not just about standing for certain things and talking about certain things, but I think that there are a lot of choices that we can all make in our own lives that can make the world a little bit better. And if you happen to live near a Winco, you should shop there. You should shop there exclusively if possible.
Yeah, one of my and I guess maybe this will lead into my next question.
And then we all have to go here soon. So.
Yeah. I don't want to keep you too long.
No worries. It's just my parents are here with my kid, and I want to.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, speaking of causes, one cause that's very important to me is BDS, boycott, divestment, sanctions with regard to Israel. Yeah. So I can definitely relate to what you're saying. About where you shop with regard to that,
it's a big deal.
Products you buy, and
for sure.
Voting with your dollars is a real thing. Like,
it is a real thing, but it's a little bit of it's overused, because the truth is that that's a way to rig the rig democracy for the rich even more, because if you have the most dollars, you have the most votes, right? So like you also have to be a little bit careful, I think, with that terminology. but
no, yeah,
but yeah, I think that there is a true there is some truth to it, obviously. But like you know, I want to come back on anytime, and I will. Like, you guys just invite me when you decide.
Yeah, I just wanted to
you want
ask
Steve Cox back on here.
I just wanted to ask you real quick. I always do this.
He does do this every time.
That's fine.
I mean, just as much time as you can spare, but just about your foreign policy perspective.
Oh, that's a huge.
This is easy. This is the easiest question ever.
Oh, okay.
I'm against any war not in direct defense of the United States of America. I would, if you could make me a wizard or something, and like I could have power to just do whatever I wanted, I would bring all of our soldiers home from everywhere around the world, and they would all be inside our borders.
Right on.
All of them, and let everybody else, let it all fall where it's going to fall. Right. But I'm a non-interventionist or anti-interventionist, but I'm also I also am smart enough to understand that our country has done some despicable things for quite a while around the world. And I think it would be very dumb if we gave up our defense altogether. Because I think if we did that right now, we would just be asking for somebody to come kick our ass.
Yeah.
I'm not for like end defense spending or anything like that, but it should be a fraction of what it is, and we should be doing it from inside our own borders.
Yeah. Hopefully you can join us again and we can dig deeper into that, because foreign policy is
I
kind
love
of my
foreign
jam.
policy stuff, but one of the big things about foreign policy that I think that people need to keep in mind is that we all have this otherism, the tribalism that comes around, and they use that against us, so it's always like the Russians and the this and the that. And Russians aren't different from us,
right?
No.
Right? Chinese people aren't different from us, because people are human beings. We're all human beings, and we all have a certain number of traits that are the same. That's what makes us human beings. So at our core, we are the same from one to the other. And I simply don't subscribe to the idea that some people are inherently worse or bad or anything than any other people. I don't think that's a thing.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's a type of narrative that's used to describe us. And if we can all sort of have that epiphany about ourselves and understand that a homeless man sleeping on a bench is worth just as much as Joe Biden, to the world,
right?
To us.
The human being.
Once we can understand and we can accept that, I think the rest of the shit just kind of falls into place.
Yeah.
Like, I think we can all figure it out at that point. But there's a lot working against us doing that. So please, my website's being rebuilt, but if you guys want to visit it, it's voteforcox.com. I've got over 30,000 words of policy on there if you want to dive in.
Awesome.
But the bigger thing is that I hate doing this, but I have to get money. So if you're watching this, whatever you can afford comfortably, that doesn't put you in any harm's way, the money will be well taken care of. I'm going to be a good steward of every dollar that comes into the campaign, but we need to get it. Otherwise, this is not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
We really need the money. So please help.
Yeah. And remember, it's not because you want money. It's because that's the way the system
I'm not going to get any of it.
Right. Right.
And I get nothing.
Yeah. It's the nature of the beast. And,
it's just a matter of how much it costs,
Yeah. But yeah, we'll be happy to link to
your website, your Twitter, all that stuff in the show notes.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you. And please, whenever, just let me know. If you decide Steve Cox is the guy you need on your show, just let me know and I'll jump on.
Thanks so much for coming on, Steve. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Fight the power.
Take care.
I see you.
Bye.